Welcome back to the Bourbon BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 259, and it feels like spring here in the Midwest today for another about 24 hours.
Yeah.
24, 36, something like that.
Yeah. It's almost 60 right now, 70 tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then back into the 40s where it belongs.
It's February 22nd. And like I said, happy Whiskey Wednesday. We've got a little bit of a theme tonight for the part one. Kind of leads into part two as well. Ooh. But I want to thank our sponsors first and foremost. Obviously, you guys out there that do the Patreon and the support that way. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. There are 3 different tiers you guys can choose from, and we appreciate all that monthly support. And also Venmo at Bourbon and BS if you want to do a one-time contribution. Helps us keep things going. Really appreciate that. Helps us with all the audio stuff, the visual stuff, streaming, posting, all that good stuff. So we appreciate that. If you guys just want to tell people about the show, that's also very, very welcome. We do appreciate that. So we're on all the podcast apps. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. We stream live every Wednesday on Facebook and YouTube. So definitely check that out. And thanks to Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. They are a sponsor. They are featuring tonight the Blackened M81 to the Core by Drew Estate tonight. So that is available at Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. Made from Drew Estate Cigars. Check them out. Also check out March 18th, Saturday, March 18th. The Tinderbox is going to have the Smoking 10 event. Drew Estate will not be there. You got one of those. Oh, look at that. Look at that advertising. I wore one to the gym tonight, actually.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you know, just subliminal in the background. So check it out. Tickets are still on sale. 75% sold out so far, but there are tickets still available. And also thanks to Altadis USA, we have the Upman, H. Upman, Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez, always one of our favorites for the part twos. So that's why I chose that tonight. And I think we're going to be coming off a fairly hearty smoke with the Blackened. So that'll hopefully stand its own in part two. But thank you, Altadis USA, for the continued support. They will be at the 10 event, Smoking 10 event, March 18th. And also BS Cigar Company, the gold and silver are now available. The gold made by Plasencia and the silver made by Espinosa. Check those out. Fantastic smokes. And also some of the swag. With all these changing seasons every week, we've got something for everything on buyjack.com/bourbon and BS. So you got the t-shirts, you got the podcast
t-shirts for tomorrow. Today was
right.
3/4.
I got the 3/4 on underneath here, you know.
And then Saturday
got the hoodies.
And then Friday will be the hoodie.
Yeah. We got you covered. Buyjack.com. That's byjack.com/bourbon and BS. All right. You're lighting up.
Why not?
We're smoking I can't think of a reason. We're smoking the Blackened by Drew Estate. What are we drinking tonight?
The Blackened.
Weird.
But not by Drew Estate.
No. The whiskey came out first in 2017.
I believe it was.
Was the project, I think. So, and but yeah, this came out earlier than the cigar. The cigar was an after project, if you will.
Came out fall last year.
Yeah, 2022. Yeah, I think they launched it at the PCA in the summer of 2022, and then obviously it kind of showed up afterwards. So
yeah,
tell us about the whiskey here. I know a little bit. I think you know a little bit more, but we both did a little research on this. But the big thing is obviously this is a project on both fronts with the rock band Metallica.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So the whiskey came, like you said, the whiskey came first. It was a collaboration between the band and Dave Pickerell, who
at first it was with Dave Pickerell. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, go ahead. The way you said, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. Just go ahead. Just go ahead.
Dave Pickerell, some people, especially the bourbon nerds, might remember. He was with Wild Turkey. I'm sorry, Maker's Mark.
I was about to correct you.
I know. I was gonna wait.
I'm not trying to. I'm sharing it at the same time, which I encourage everyone to do.
Yeah, he was with Maker's Mark for about 14 years as the Master Distiller, and then he had started some other projects, and he started this one with the band. First came out 2017, I believe it was, and then in 2018, he unfortunately passed away from a heart attack. So then another gentleman by the name of Rob Dietrich took over the distilling in 2019.
Correct. Yeah.
So Dave passed away in 2018. Rob took over that part of the operation in 2019. Essentially, what they do is they source whiskeys from all across the country. They blend them, put them into Spanish brandy casks, which they call black barrels, just nickname. They put those in there and finish it for about 2 to 10 weeks. But while they're doing that, and
here's the kicker.
This is part of the kicker. So each batch, you remember hearing about the science experiment when you were kids about like pea pods and pea plants, like growing plants with classical music versus hard rock music.
I remember. I don't think we did it, but I know what you're talking about.
So that's kind of
like when you sing to your plants.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
That's essentially what they're doing to this. They're playing different soundtracks to the barrels for each batch,
but at the lower frequencies, right?
Yes.
It's more of the lower tones to get the vibrations.
Yes. So what they're doing is they're using sound waves to basically force the whiskey in and out of the barrel. Instead of, like we've talked about other whiskey companies doing the whole pressure cooker thing. Like this isn't that. It's literally
finishing though. They're taking, right? I mean, this is the classic barrels, and then they're finishing it.
They're finishing
it's not the whole maturation.
No. It's not the whole thing, because like I said, they're sourcing from all over the country. But when they're in the finishing barrel, that's when they're playing the music to those barrels, basically disturbing it and getting it more contact with the barrels.
Yeah.
And each batch they play a different set of songs that the band picks. So you can actually go on their website and search your batch number, and it'll tell you the songs in that playlist. And if you want, you can actually click on the link and it'll play it through Spotify or whatever.
Did you have the link?
I have the list
the
of
playlist.
Yeah.
Concert set here.
Yeah. So for this batch, which is batch 129, I think it started in the numbering started in the 80s. Currently
probably 81, right? With like maybe. I wonder if it did, because okay.
And it currently goes up to 135. So we have 129. So they have done a few more since then. So there's 8 songs on this playlist. They're all Metallica songs.
No, really?
Oh, real? Yeah, who'd have thought?
No shit.
Fade to Black.
Nice.
One.
Nice.
Welcome Home.
Mm-hmm.
Battery.
See, I will say I am a Metallica fan, but I'm not a Metallica fan. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Yeah, like I enjoy it, but I mean, I'm not going to know all these. I don't know if anyone else will out there.
I do. My Friend Misery. The Shortest Straw. Tuesday's Gone. And Leper Messiah. So that's the playlist. So basically it just plays on repeat over and over at those low tones.
I wonder what size room this is. Does it say when because I did look it up, but I didn't see that part. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah,
was there like how big is the batch?
Oh, I'd have to look back.
Sure.
My notes and see if I got that or not.
It's fine.
But yeah, so then that aging, that secondary maturation process is 2 to 10 weeks, and then they bottle it. So
it's creative.
Yeah. One thing that interestingly, it's actually bottled right here in Columbus.
It is. I saw that.
Yeah. Sweet Amber Distilling Company in Columbus, Ohio. I don't know where they're at. I tried looking them up on Google Maps and nothing came up.
Yeah, I wonder who that is. Sweet Amber. I don't know.
So that'd be interesting to find out. One of the interesting connections about the two head distillers, both Dave Pickerell and Rob Dietrich, both of them served in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them were Army. Dave Pickerell actually went to West Point, got a degree in chemistry, then got a master's degree, and then started becoming a distiller and chemist. And then Rob Dietrich, he was in the 10th Mountain Division. So normally, like, think of it military ski patrol. So mountains, Arctic, cold weather. He winds up in Somalia.
A lot of skiing.
He winds up in Somalia during the events that would become the movie Black Hawk Down. He was there when that shit happened. For some reason, the 10th Mountain Division was stationed in Mogadishu when all that shit went down in 93.
Wow. Fun fact.
Yeah. Yeah. So then he got out of the military. He's always been, a hot rod motorcycle kind of guy. He got into whiskey. Who was it? The last thing he did before Blackened is Stranahan's whiskey. Yeah. Carfagnas, I know we have that on the shelf. It's a single malt whiskey from Colorado. Mm-hmm. So that was a project he had worked on. I know there were some others that he had. Who was it he learned? Oh, originally he learned from the guy that distills Tin Cup whiskey.
Okay.
That's who he kind of learned from. Yeah.
Huh. Well, the whiskey itself was originally, like you said, done by
Dave Pickerell.
Dave Pickerell, and his name's still on the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that was he was untimely. I think he was 62 when he passed away, so he was fairly young. So it's cool to see the project going. James Hetfield's the one I think that's really got his name on most of this here, as far as I know it does on the cigar side of things. But yeah, it is interesting to see that. I like the story. It is. Would you say it's gimmicky?
Oh gosh, I think.
Do you think playing Metallica to the barrels does a great influence on that?
You would have to drink a barrel that didn't go through that process side by side to really determine that accurately. It would be pure speculation at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, plus 2 to 10 weeks, like how much interaction is it really creating?
Yeah.
Because they're not doing the pressurization thing. So it's not like it's being forced in and out of the wood. It just happens to coincide with the vibrations of the music. So
I think if anything, Aaron Gardner has an opinion. I think if anything, it's got more to do with the cast they're finishing. You said the Spanish brandy. Spanish brandy. I think it has more to do with that than it does the sound. But again, you're right. You don't know for sure. I mean, I think it is something that if a band is going to put out something, you might as well add a little bit of their personal flair to it. Mm-hmm. So I'll give them creativity kudos.
Yeah.
And the fact that then it's not just the blend's different, or we try to do the same blend, but it could taste different because of the playlist.
Well, and they've also done some other, like they've also come out with a rye, which I'm interested to try. Yeah. They've done some collaborations, like with Willett, with Wes Henderson, mm-hmm. whose dad Lincoln created Angel's Envy, mm-hmm. which was really the first mainstream bourbon to finish in a secondary cask that wasn't like that had already been used for like wine or rum or cognac or stuff like that. So,
yeah, I will get. It's creative. We did have someone say, it's about as gimmicky as it gets. Not saying it's bad. What do we think of this? I think it's got a little sweetness on the nose for sure.
Mm-hmm. It's got more of like that lighter sweetness on the palate, like the honey and butterscotch type sweetness. Not the real heavy caramel notes. Like even in the bottle, it doesn't look all that heavy or dark in the bottle or in the glass. Just
got a little vanilla to it.
Yeah.
Not much spice, but a little bit of spices in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's light.
It is light. It's what, 90 proof?
What do you mean in flavor?
No, I know. Yeah,
It's very light. It's almost reminds me of a little bit heavier in flavor, but it almost reminds me a bit more of like a extra añejo tequila flavor wise.
huh? It's been a while since I've had an extra añejo tequila.
Just think of añejo tequila. It has more like that bourbon cask.
No, yeah,
to it.
yeah, more of those. Yeah, those are going to have more of those vanilla notes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's light.
It is.
It's enjoyable. I mean, it is. It's got good flavor. You getting many fruit notes? I'm trying to stress you out with these tough questions.
No. I think one of the reasons why it doesn't have that really dark color or any of those dark fruit or caramel notes.
Metallica.
No. Like when you look it up, because it's a combination and a blend of whiskeys from all over the place. There's no set mash bill. There's no age statement. All they say on their site is it's very well aged. Well, there's no legal definition to that. So
no. And it is, yes, whiskeys. So you don't have the bourbon definition. So I like the fact that they didn't put Metallica. That was part of the project, is that they didn't want to put Metallica on the bottle. They kind of alluded to it, with the Forged by Sound, and you look up the story, but it doesn't say Metallica anywhere on it because I think they didn't want to be gimmicky by image, which I can appreciate.
Except, is that an M on the bottom of the bottle?
It is, and it was on top too. On the cork.
The cork.
Which they did kind of the same thing with the cigar here, is that you have M81 Maduro to the core, but not knowing that there was a Metallica influence on the cigar. It's kind of the same thing. It's a Drew Estate product. It does say Hetfield on the box, but it doesn't really push the Metallica brand name on it. So you have to know the story to get to that point. But I will say, I said it, the whiskey is light. What?
It is light. I'm not getting, because you had asked, I'm not really getting many fruit notes.
Mm-mm.
If it is, it'd be lighter fruits, like
pear,
golden apples, pear, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Something really light. But little sweetness. Like, it's not harsh. It doesn't come across like a real young whiskey, corn water and bite to it.
I don't get that.
It doesn't have that. I mean, it's well-rounded but light.
Mm-hmm. I'll say I wasn't expecting it to be this light. I mean, we did try it before, just a little small sip, I know, weeks ago. But I was thinking we were gonna have something. Maybe if they do have that rye, it'd be better with the cigar. It's a bold cigar. This is a lot of broadleaf. It's a lot of broadleaf.
Yes, Shannon, we do look perplexed. There's a lot of thinking going on because we've smoked this cigar. We haven't had this whiskey where we're actually sitting down and focusing on the whiskey.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just
I'm trying to be creative or constructive about it. It's like the fact that not creative, constructive about it. It's good. I will wait till we get to the ratings on it. It's just it kind of. You want more, I guess. I want
kind
more.
of falls flat.
Yeah.
Comes up short.
It's not hitting all the right notes. Get it? So
he just got an eye roll from the audience.
Here and everywhere. Live and after the fact. So it's a San Andreas wrapper on this, Blackened by Drew Estate. So you have the San Andreas dark wrapper leaf. And you also have broadleaf binder. So it's Connecticut broadleaf binder. And it's broadleaf filler from Nicaragua and Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the whole Maduro thing, you've got some other companies like Camacho and Aroa that use, they consider it's all Maduro because all three major aspects, the wrapper, the binder, and the filler all use Maduro shade, hardier tobaccos. This one utilizing not only Connecticut broadleaf, Nicaraguan broadleaf, and also Pennsylvania broadleaf. You got a Mexican San Andres wrapper on it. So it is, I'm not saying it's like the fullest body cigar out there. It's just, it's robust. It's got a lot going on there.
I remember when I first smoked this in the shop, knowing, it was influenced by Metallica, knowing that it was all Maduro inside with that San Andreas wrapper, I was actually expecting more. I was expecting something more.
What?
I was expecting something more like the Aroa CBT or Camacho Triple Maduro, like just really heavy, bold, punchy in the mouth type of cigar, and it definitely didn't hit like that. It's full of flavor, but I think the body that from the ones that I smoked, because I've smoked several of these.
Yeah,
it's more like medium plus, medium full. Like it's not as strong as what I was expecting.
Yeah,
given everything behind it.
Yeah. This one
you're allowed to disagree with me.
No, I mean it is. I think strength wise, it's not super full bodied. I don't know what I was expecting. But when you read that blend, I mean, it's a lot of broadleaf. That's not just Maduro shade stuff. I mean, you're talking about broadleaf, including Pennsylvania broadleaf, which I think has that unique flavor to it. That's definitely, it's coming out in the blend for sure. But it does have those darker kind of notes, like the coffee espresso type stuff going on there. A little bit of that bitterness, It's almost with this one, and it's not always with Pennsylvania broadleaf. I think that this one does have a bit of that it brings out like the coffee sat too long
in the pot on the burner.
Pot. Yeah. It got cooked a little bit too much, right? So I think that's
where McDonald's coffee. Yeah, that's exactly what they were going for, was that flavor.
I think this has that with like a dark chocolate, but with that. Kind of like the dark chocolate espresso beans.
Yeah. Where
you're getting a little bit of that.
Yeah. Where it's going to have that bite to it, that bitterness, tinge of sweetness to it.
People have asked, how is it? Do you like it and all that stuff? And I say, you have to like broadleaf is a big part of that, is that you have to like broadleaf. It's not for everyone. This is not made for everyone. Much like you think, if you want to bring in the whole gimmick, Metallica is not for everyone. You know what I mean? It is more of a mainstream rock band back in the day, but it wasn't for everyone. And I don't think this cigar is. I'm curious. I don't see this necessarily being paired up with the whiskey when you have James Hetfield, you have Drew Estate, Jonathan Drew, you have Willie Herrera from the Master Blender from Drew Estate, if he had his hands on this project. And then also the Rob, is it Dietrich?
Dietrich.
I want to say Dietrich, like the skateboarder. Dietrich.
Which is funny because every time I try to look up stuff on Rob Dietrich, Google kept throwing everything Rob Dietrich at me. And I'm like, no, I know how to spell the fucker's name. I don't want to know
about the Fantasy Factory. I don't think this was intentional to pair up with it. I think this is just the same brand name.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I don't think they sat around and go, hey, let's find a blend of all Maduro tobaccos that's going to complement our whiskey.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the Blackened, I know it's like with the original whiskey here it's not like they went with this like super bold, even by look dark, flavor, real like, cast strength type stuff, it came out with, use the name. With the cigar, I think they kind of went with the name a little bit more intentional towards the blend of the first one.
Yeah.
M81 to the core. 81 M81 is for Metallica, which they formed in 1981. That's why they have that on there, and they put Maduro to the core. So I wouldn't imagine there's really a whole lot of like line extensions to this. I don't think they're going to come out with a Blackened Connecticut. I don't think that would be really on brand here. Soft rock hits. But I do like the cigar. I don't think it's necessarily for everyone. Like I said, I mean, this is it's a lot of broad. It's a heavy smoke. But to your point, not super full bodied.
No,
it's just it's heavy on the palate.
Yeah, that's what's
like a dark roast coffee that was sitting on the burner too long.
Yeah, and that's what surprised me the most about it. And after I smoked my first one in the shop, Some of the regulars that come in will actually sit there and, ask for a recommendation instead of smoking the same thing all the time. And yeah, there were a few of them that after I smoked one, I was like, here, you should try this. It's the Metallica cigar. It's got all this Maduro in it, but it's not super heavy. And they're like, really? And they're like, yeah, it's, medium plus, maybe a little, medium full.
It tastes like it's going to be.
Yeah. But like, if you just read it, you read the blend and everything and, all the Maduro tobacco, you think it's going to be, punch you in the mouth, and it doesn't. But I kind of like that because if it was super full body, like, what the blend and the name might lead you to believe, it would overpower your palate to the point where you wouldn't really taste any of the tobacco, I think. But because they toned it down, you can actually taste some of those other tobaccos and nuances in the flavor.
Do you think there's a decent amount of Ligero in that?
I wouldn't say there's a whole lot. If I had to say, I'd say less than half of the blend is Ligero tobacco. And that's based on, my experience with the company I used to work for, who would use a lot of Ligero in some of their blends.
Yeah.
Their double Ligero line had 82% Ligero. The single Ligero line was 41% Ligero. So
good math.
Yeah. So triple Maduro would be 123, right?
Wait a second.
But
it's just Ligero and double Ligero. It wasn't single Ligero, right?
I know.
So yeah, doesn't start at 0.
I know. But no, yeah, I wouldn't suspect there's a great deal of Ligero in the blend.
Yeah. On the looks, it's interesting. The primary band on this, the box is kind of cool. It's got one of those. You open it up from the top, but it's got the little kick down, and then the rest of it, and it does have the breakout of the blend, and it has the 3 major names: Hatfield, Drew, and Dietrich.
Which, when you think about it, like this type of cigar being associated with Metallica, that's got Jonathan Drew kind of written all over it.
Sure,
he's a very eccentric, musically driven guy.
He is. But what I found kind of interesting is that the primary band, it has the same text as the major logo on the Blackened whiskey
with the line through
it. But it is a plain black band.
It's a small band too,
with no embossment. I think if there is, it's very, very slight.
Yeah.
In fact,
it's a small.
Very thin.
It's one of those
cigar smoker. Think of Tatuaje size.
It's almost
smaller.
Yeah, smaller than a Tatuaje band.
There is a little embossment on there if you see that.
Yeah. It's more
just
like
a little.
Like, this is the size of band you would expect to be a secondary band on a cigar.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then on the foot, though, you've got a much flashier band with, copper, the Drew Estate logo on the back. It's bold. It even has some design to the black backing of it, and it's
textured,
much heavier on the embossment. You can see that when I lay that down on the table.
Oh yeah.
And when you lay this down on the table, you can barely. It's still very faint. You got to get the light right. So interesting in marketing. I don't know. But didn't Metallica have the one album at least that was just all black?
The Black Album.
The Black Album.
Yeah.
So I said I like Metallica. I'm a Metallica fan. I'm not a Metallica fan.
Well, and that was their album that really kind of turned fans one way or the other on them, because that was when they had songs like Nothing Else Matters.
Nothing Else Matters.
That's
slower.
It's kind of a ballad.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people are like, wait, this isn't Metallica. What the fuck is this? This isn't Battery or Master of Puppets. Like, what is this? Because at the time, when Metallica was up and coming in the 80s, they were known for playing as hard and loud and fast as they possibly could.
Yeah.
And then that album was something completely different, where it was more about their musical ability and stuff like that, instead of just trying to play loud and fast.
Well, even Hetfield's voice.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he really showed that, like, not only did he have the rock voice, but he had the ballad voice. He could carry a tune with something behind it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said Tuesday's Gone was on this set, right? The Blackened batch 129.
Was
it Tuesday's Gone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That's song number 7 of 8 on the playlist.
Taste that towards the end of the glass. Right there. Looks like who's out there? Ryan Jones is also drinking some of this. He said he has a bottle of this. Welcome from Illinois out there. Sean Anderson says I'm going to get canceled for something. Not quite sure yet.
Because he said Blackened is for Cajun food?
I don't know. But it is good to see Sean Anderson out there. We're going to miss you at the 10 event coming from Tennessee. Jonathan Herring, I don't think he's in Texas right now. He said he was somewhere on a beach, which is fine. Whatever.
Or is he in Vegas for the TPE?
He's not.
Oh.
I don't think. Let's find out. No.
What's
South Padre Island?
Oh, all right.
Must be nice.
Yeah.
I said it's in the 60s here.
One of the other things that did surprise me about this cigar, the price point. Not what I was expecting.
What were you expecting, and what is it?
So at the tinderbox, there's 4 sizes. There's a Corona, Robusto, a Toro, and a double Corona, which is like a Churchill. And I think those range from like $10.50 to $12. And honestly, given the collaboration with the band, I was thinking this was going to come out in like the 15 to 20. Celebrity cigar.
Yeah, I'm glad it didn't.
Yeah, me too.
I'm glad it didn't.
That means I can smoke.
Corrected by Shannon Chapman and also Jonathan Herring. I guess South Padre is in Texas. I don't know where, but it's on a beach. It's on a beach.
Maybe he's sipping something strong.
I don't know. I agree with you about the pricing. You got a lot of hands involved in this, and so to come in at a almost below average price anymore, it was surprising.
Yeah.
But looking at in a good or bad way, depending on again what you're doing here, it's very, very toothy. The wrapper.
Yes,
that
it
San
is.
Andreas.
Yeah.
It's one of the toothiest I've seen in a long time,
Mm-hmm.
which means there's a lot of bumps to it.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's typically the oil pockets
Mm-hmm.
of the tobacco leaf. But it's almost more of a rustic looking wrapper as well.
Like,
it's not a pretty wrapper.
It's not the smoothest, like roll it perfectly
Not a pretty
across the table.
Mm-mm.
Like it's definitely got some bumps and divots, but I mean,
And you figure if they're using the Connecticut broadleaf for the binder, that's some of the uglier, typically
It
broadleaf that they can't use, which Connecticut broadleaf is more typically used as a wrapper leaf, which is a more polished wrapper leaf. And so with this, you figure you probably are bringing down the cost a little bit by using Connecticut broadleaf that isn't as coveted to use as a wrapper leaf. So you've got San Andreas that is not the prettiest San Andreas on here, but it is a very toothy and hardy wrapper leaf. You can feel this.
oh, I know. Like
I mean,
that picture I put, that picture I posted in the community page, like you can see those bumps on it. You can tell it's a toothy wrapper by looking at it. If you hold it, in the light just right, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like rubbing your finger over sandpaper.
Yeah,
like really fine sandpaper.
We say it must be nice. Jonathan Henry says he's out here working his ass off, and people think I'm on vacation. I mean, probably.
I mean,
I'm sure you're enjoying your trip the best you can, even if it is a work trip. But yeah, so that's where I see them keeping the cost down on this, is that they use some tobacco on this project that may not be that kind of top priming of the grade that people are looking for wrapper leaf on most of their cigars.
And you said the filler is a combination of Pennsylvania broadleaf and Nicaraguan.
It says broadleaf.
Okay.
I'm sure. I would imagine it's not all broadleaf. I imagine there's some other filler tobacco in there, but they say Nicaraguan broadleaf from Nicaragua and Pennsylvania in the description.
Do we know where that Nicaraguan filler is coming from? All right.
I don't.
Just thought, just curious.
What are you thinking?
No, I was just curious, like which of the main 4 region it was possibly coming from.
That I don't know.
I mean, knowing Drew Estate, them being based in Esteli, that would be my primary guess.
I would guess that.
So,
and I don't know what the ratio is either. Obviously, they don't say what that would be, so you don't know if it's more Pennsylvania broadleaf heavy, which a lot of cigars aren't. You usually see that in a wrapper leaf, or you see it as in 1 or 2 leaves in the filler.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, if they're using Nicaraguan broadleaf, that's going to be cheaper than anywhere else, right?
Yeah,
it'll be cheaper than it is in the U.S. So, That's probably,
Very much so.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's probably where they keep the cost down. But again, who knows? I don't think, we recently on the show, not too recently, but we've had like the knuckle sandwiches on there. And I don't think Metallica is as involved in these projects like that Guy Fieri is, as far as like making appearances. I doubt that maybe you'll see James Hetfield at some of the cigar events going forward. I don't know.
Wasn't there something going on where like there was a raffle among cigar shops in the U.S. to actually be able to do an event with James?
Very possible. I don't know. I didn't see that, but it's very possible.
I was told that by Brian.
Well, there you go.
Because apparently the tinderbox was in the final running for that, but we didn't get it. Could you imagine having him at the 10 event?
That would be interesting. Guy Fieri at the booth, and Metallica as the headliner. Yeah, it'd be cool.
Yeah, Christian Arroyo's over here.
Whatever. Just another Saturday.
That's right.
Just another Saturday
in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, in March. Well, I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot more to say about these. We kind of breezed through it a little bit, not having a guest on tonight, but I think that we covered quite a bit. No real questions from the audience as far as
the cigar whiskey,
the cigar and the whiskey. But
there was a lot of
in the live or online.
There was a lot of I remember there being a lot of press and about this cigar before it launched, and we actually had people coming into the tinderbox asking for the cigar before we actually got it in.
That's Drew Estate, though.
Yeah. What? I remember I had a guy come into the store. He goes, "Hey, did you guys get the Blackened Cigar in by Metallica?" I was like, "It literally just started shipping today." And he goes, "Yeah, I know." I'm like, "So you have postal service and you have UPS. We don't have teleporters, so no, it's not in yet."
Just say, let me check the back, see if it got here yet. Nope, still not. It's like in Tommy Boy. Sure the kitchen's closed? Let me check. Yep. Still closed. Now we do the rating here on the end of part one. We'll get into the part two, which I don't know where it's going to go. I'm hoping the audience will contribute the kind of with what we're going over. I was trying to think of topics. We've got guests lined up for pretty much all of March, which is great. We've got 2 remote guests next week and the following. David Blanco with Blanco Cigars and Ricky Rodriguez with West Tampa Tobacco.
Woo-hoo.
Both going to be attending on March 18th, that Saturday at the Smoking Ted event.
I have to ask.
Okay.
In 2 weeks with Ricky, are we going to be featuring a West Tampa?
You will be smoking a West Tampa cigar.
Yeah. All right. I'm happy. I haven't gotten a chance to smoke one yet. I know you have.
I have. So yes, we will. Those shipped to us on Monday, but as you just explained to the audience, they haven't arrived yet. So we'll hopefully see that in tomorrow or Friday.
Reminds me of a line from one of my favorite movies.
All right. What is it?
We set out for the bars, but they ain't arrived yet.
All right.
Sorry.
As I was saying, with the topic tonight, because we're doing the Metallica, the Blackened whiskey, the Blackened Cigar for part 2. If you guys that are listening live now want to think of something to contribute, the topic for part 2 is, if I can find the banner, is it worth the hype?
Ooh. All right.
So we'll talk about some of this and wherever else you guys want to take the topic. Aaron Garner says, what's the best cigar collaborations? We can talk about that in part 2 for sure.
Or in the intermission. Okay. All right. Save it.
But going back to the ratings here, guys, the whiskey, the cigar, and the pairing. So, Nate, for you, the Blackened blend, what do they call it?
It's Blackened whiskey.
Blackened whiskey. Yeah. It says a blend of straight whiskeys finished in black brandy casks.
Black brandy casks is just a fancy way of saying Spanish brandy.
Right. All right. So what do you think of the whiskey here out of 10 being the best?
What was the MSRP on this in Ohio?
Ooh, it's a $50 bottle.
Is it up to $50 now?
$49. Jeez. Yeah.
All right. Not counting price, I'll give it a 7. It's enjoyable. It's definitely on the lighter side. So, this would be for someone who, maybe an Angel's Envy fan,
yeah.
Penelope 4 grain, Basil Hayden's, stuff that normally comes in like those lower 80 to 90 proof. It's not, this is not going to be, for your barrel strength or 10-year, your Russell's Reserve fans or something like that. No, this is something that's going to be really light. Probably a good whiskey to drink in the summertime when it's warm, because it's so light. It's enjoyable. There's just not a lot of depth to the flavor. It's not a very rich whiskey. All the flavor, you get the flavor. We talked about the different flavor notes that we got, but they're all kind of light.
Yeah.
But that being said, they blend together nicely. Like there's no
it's enjoyable, right?
Yeah, there's no one flavor that overpowers and overwhelms your palate. Everything's there kind of in balance. You get a little bit of sweetness, lighter fruits, not your dark fruits or anything like that. Just a little bit of spice on the back end, but nothing crazy, nothing super complex, but it's enjoyable. So 7 on the whiskey. The cigar, I'm actually an 8 on the cigar.
Okay.
I do enjoy this cigar. I've smoked it several times at the shop. The first time I smoked it is what really surprised me because, one, the price point. Like I said earlier, I was expecting a $15 to $20 cigar, and this is coming in, $10, $12 in that range, which, as you said, nowadays that's kind of just on the lower end of average.
Just shy of it.
Yeah. Average price nowadays is about 12 to 13. So it's an enjoyable smoke. It's not as bold and complex as I was expecting, but I enjoyed that. It wasn't trying to melt my face off. It just, a good cigar. It's a solid smoke.
It won't melt your face off.
That's right.
Put that in the brochure.
Make a t-shirt out of that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, just, it's enjoyable. It's not what I was expecting, but I was pleasantly surprised.
Nice. What about the pairing?
Pairing, I'll give the pairing an 8. Because I think this cigar, having some of the deeper flavors that it does have, actually brings out a little bit more sweetness with the whiskey. It kind of makes, like, the whiskey in and of itself, before we lit up the cigar, the sweetness was more of like a lighter honey type of sweetness, but then with the cigar, it's a little bit more like a butterscotch type of sweetness. So it just kind of thickens up that sweetness that I get off the whiskey. So I think they go well together. Like you said, I don't think they were trying to make a pairing between the two. It was more, hey, we have a whiskey, let's make a cigar, but we're not trying to make the ultimate pairing. I think they go
brand
well.
Name at this point.
Yeah.
The branding of Blackened, I think is where they're at with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think they were trying to make this, a 10 perfect pairing, but they go well together.
Yeah. I can see that. For me, the Blackened whiskey, you gave it a 7 without the price. What is it with the price?
Maybe knock it down half a point to a point.
6.5.
Because if it's 50, let me double check OHLQ.
It's 50.
Okay.
Did you already?
Okay. well, you were
about an hour ago.
Okay.
A couple hours ago. No, it's 50. But go ahead and check that. Check my math there.
All right, but go ahead with your ratings.
If you correct me in saying it's like 49.35, I'm gonna kill you. What is it?
49.73.
$50. All right.
Yes.
Jesus. I said that because you would be the one that I said it's 50. It's actually 49.73.
Well, you were the one who was trying to correct me about Dave and Rob, which one was first, and I was right.
Sure, you were. Fair. With the price, I'll give it a 7.5. I don't know what they set out to do. The story is something. I think it's too gimmicky for most people. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to steer clear of it. I think your average person, or if you are a Metallica fan, or if you're just an average person that you see this, it looks cool. Now it's coming in at $50. You're like, oh, that's kind of neat. $50 is
celebrity.
not even knowing it's celebrity because
Yeah.
they didn't put Metallica on there. They see this and they're like, well, that's kind of good marketing. You know, it's sometimes when people buy stuff, they look at it like $50. It's about average price, a little bit higher. So it's probably, again, not listening to podcasts, not doing your research, not Googling this, and you just say, huh, that should be a legit product. You know what I mean?
Mm.
There's not many. Like today when I was at the store, it didn't have, like there's 2 of them, 3 of them. You know what I mean? It's typically available at the liquor store near me.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's one of those, like if I was just walking through there, I'm like, what haven't I had before? And you're more of a casual whiskey drinker, just getting into it. You might look at this and you'd be like, oh, that looks kind of cool. $50. That's not too bad. I'll try it out. And then you get home, you try it, and it's lighter. I think depending on where you're at on your bourbon or whiskey journey, as far as what you've tried, it is a bit lighter. But I'll give it a 7.5. I think it's enjoyable.
It also made me think of another celebrity musician who has a whiskey, and it's the same, $50 price point as the Heaven's Door, Bob Dylan.
Yeah, I mean, it's enjoyable. It's just at this point, I think where we're at and some of our listeners are at, I wouldn't necessarily. This is a bottle to try. I'd say $50. I would recommend maybe getting it if you're going over to someone's house that, again, is just getting into whiskeys or whatever. And you figured you can tell the story, hey, this is, I've had it a couple times, thought it's pretty cool. This is, and you tell them the story about all this stuff. They might eat it up and it's an enjoyable bottle. It's not heavy. But again, for $50 where I think you and I are at, and people that are some of the people that are listening to this, I wouldn't necessarily say this is going to be one that you have to have stocked on your bar all the time. You don't need to. When they put the batch, I appreciate that they're putting the batch on there, this being batch 129. But unless you're a Metallica fan, super fan, you don't need to have, every playlist. I am curious, though, how, like, if we had this bottle, still here, and then someone brought one of the newer batches over.
I'll check and see what batch we have at Carfagna's.
Jeez. I mean, it'd be interesting, but I don't know how much it has to do with the blending that they've done with the different stuff they do on each batch. We just got, if you look up on the shelf,
barrel,
the new barrel bourbon batch number, I think 34.
Yep.
And we've got Will from Barrel Craft Spirits coming on towards the end of March, so we can crack that. I'm looking forward to that. They do something different every batch, whiskey wise.
Yes.
So I don't know if Dietrich is doing that with this. Or if they're trying to make it as the same as possible, but they're then saying that, because of the
whether
music.
or not he's using like the same barrels from the same distilleries each time, or if he's using different products.
Right.
I would like to think, I would kind of like to think that he would be using the same type of whiskey from each distillery that they source from.
I would
just
think.
So then you can see whether or not the playlist actually does anything.
I think that part's probably gimmick, because again, they're omitting the lower notes. Anyways, 7.5. Cigar, I'll give it an 8. Not for everyone. Price point on that side, it helps the project. This is
this the Toro we're smoking?
Yeah, 6x52. I think it comes in 4 sizes. At least we carry 4 sizes at the Tinderbox at Easton. This is something that it's enjoyable if you do like broadleaf. You got, like I said earlier, and I've said it to customers, what do you think of it? I said, if you like broadleaf, I think you're going to like the cigar.
Yes.
But if you don't like broadleaf, typically, and a lot of people are like, what does that mean? That's not really a big endorsement. I'm like, no, it's the truth.
Well,
if you don't like that, but again, it's not a bundled cigar. It's constructed well. I will say that. I'm relighting just because.
If you don't like Maduro tobacco, you may not like this cigar. But if you love Connecticut, this may not be your cigar either.
If I was to pick, I'll ask you this as I'm stretching out my ratings. What genre of music would you put this cigar?
Wow, that's a weird question.
Well, would you put it with Metallica? Or
no.
if I said, all right, so we've got this blend, and you're looking at it, everything we talked about this, right? And I gave it an 8 based on the price. We're going to price point it at, $10 to $12. You're smoking this. What genre of music would you put this cigar with?
70s rock.
Why? And you guys can chime in at home, and I'll put your comments up there.
Heavy for its time, not heavy by today's standards. You know, like Led Zeppelin, Ted Nugent, early Van Halen. Not super heavy, but musical.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to put up a comment here. Aaron Garner says, Nashville country. Nashville country.
Well, that's right up your alley, Steve.
So it is. I would say this today. I like Aaron's answer. That's where I'm at with it. This is country, but like Chris Stapleton, like
bougie country.
No,
that's what I consider Nashville country.
All right, well,
bougie country. Because if it was,
you need to go back to Nashville.
Like if it was like if someone just said, you know, like country music, I'd be thinking this was like a $6 to $8 cigar.
Country style, I would say like now Chris Stapleton. I would say
okay,
Cody Jinks. I would say, gosh, I'm drawing blanks here. Oh, geez.
Not George Strait.
Not George Strait, but go back 90s. I would say like Aaron Tippin, Randy Travis.
Alan Jackson?
Nah, not Alan Jackson. No.
Shania Twain.
Maybe. No, but I will say, I'll say this, and I know you guys think I'm really corny with that question, but I was curious. I will say this is 80s Metallica. I can see them smoking this backstage in the 80s. 90s and beyond, I can't see it. Because it's just like, it's tough.
Okay.
It's tough. They weren't like the hair bands, you know what I mean? They were a rock band. The pairing, I'm going to say, I'll give it an 8. It goes okay, goes well together.
You and I are almost number for number.
That never happens. But I think it goes well. This isn't what I would expect. This whiskey, I think, would go better with a medium-bodied cigar. So from the Drew Estate catalog, I would pick with this whiskey. I would pick a Herrera Esteli Miami.
Oh.
I would pick a. I've discontinued most of it. I'm gonna say the Undercrown Sungrown. No, I'd say or a little heavier, but no, I'd say I'd stick with the Herrera Miami.
Okay.
On this, what were you thinking?
When you first said Herrera with the whiskey, I was actually thinking the other way. I was thinking the Habano.
Yeah,
because that's not as heavy.
Medium.
Yeah,
just more medium body.
Yeah.
And with this cigar, it's a tough one. I mean, it does go well with a sweeter one because if you do something too bold, it's just too strong.
I'd be interested to see if we can get our hands, because there's only 2 currently, or maybe currently. The other one's probably almost impossible to find. The only other one listed on OHLQ's website is the Blackened X Wes Henderson. And that's coming in at $100 a bottle.
Oof.
Be interesting to see if we can get our hands on that bottle, how this cigar would go with that one.
Sure.
Because Wes Henderson, you know, I'm a big Angels Envy fan. So that'd be interesting to see. So if anyone out there can find a Blackened X Wes Henderson bottle and wants to donate it to the podcast,
or bring it by the garage if you're local,
or just give us a couple little sample bottles. That's fine too.
All right. Well, so those are the ratings. Appreciate it, guys. That's part 1. So we had the Blackened Whiskey, the Blackened Cigar. And I do want to thank all you guys that are tuning in live. I know a lot of our cigar industry are out at the PCA right now in Vegas.
TPE.
I'm sorry, TPE in Vegas, which is a trade show. And we hope everyone's having a good time out there. And what?
No, I was thinking, well, like Josh Bentley. Oh, I don't know if you saw like his travel hiccups he's had. Oh God.
Yeah, I did. I did.
Feel sorry for that.
Safe travels to everyone out there.
Yeah.
And I want to thank our sponsors, obviously, you guys, patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. Check that out. We appreciate the continued support from you guys. Again, helps us keep this thing going. If you want to do a one-time contribution, Venmo at Bourbon and BS. I was talking to Spencer, who did a nice contribution. He says, what are you planning on doing with the money? I said, well, I might be buying a new laptop.
Yeah.
Might be going to that.
Yeah, instead of upgrading the studio, yeah, that's probably a bigger priority.
Might be able to do both, but again, that might be a priority. That's why it's nice to have some of those contributions to keep it going. You know what I mean? So that's great. We have new webcam. Luckily, we don't need the propane this week, but every time I fill up the propane, you're looking at $20-$30 right there. So it does just helps out a little bit, keep it going where we don't have to put anything in there, and hopefully you guys are enjoying it enough. So we appreciate that. Tinderbox at Easton, thank you very much. Columbus, Ohio, for the Blackened Cigar by Drew Estate, the M81 Maduro to the core. And if you guys have not already bought a ticket, there's only 25% of the tickets left for Saturday, March 18th, the Smoking 10 event, 10th anniversary. And we're going to have, now we're up to 13 companies instead of 12.
Oh.
So we've got some changes going on there and maybe some more surprises. Looking forward to that. Check it out. I know some of the listeners tonight, I don't know if Aaron's coming, Aaron Garner. I know that Jonathan Herring is flying up from Texas to come to the event, which is huge. Love that. And then we've got some other listeners. See, Shannon Chapman, who was on last week. He might be coming back. Shannon Matson, who was listening briefly, is now going to be working part of the event.
Hey.
As is Kristen Flock. And she'll be attending as well. See, Christy Germany was on here earlier. Hopefully she's coming. Phil Davis, I think he's not going to be able to. But yeah, some of our listeners love having you guys come in town for it. Lou McGinnis is coming up from Cincinnati area.
Yeah.
So we've got people all over coming up for the event. So if you guys aren't local, but you can make the trip, it's definitely worth a great weekend in Columbus, Ohio, March 18th. We've got hotels all around the shop.
Yeah, definitely book a hotel.
Yeah, definitely. It's fantastic. So, and then also Altadis USA, we've got the, I'm not going to get to it right away, but the H. Upman Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez is our backup cigar, second cigar of the night, and the BS Cigar Company. Thank you very much. And again, swagbyjack.com/bourbon and BS. Cheers.
Cheers.
If you're listening live, stay tuned. If you're listening to the audio, click over to part 2 and enjoy the conversation. Is it worth the hype?
Who did we add?
Leaf by Oscar.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny with my new job, sampling all the different wines and beers that I sample in a week.
You have a drinking problem.
No, it's not that because we spit into cups. No, see, we do. Otherwise, we'd be hammered by noon.
Do an experiment. See what sales are after a week of not spitting into the cups.
I don't think the boss would appreciate that.
It's like a DD.
Well,
it's got to be the cooler.
Well, I do remember my boss told me one time that there was one day he did have to stay a few extra hours because he sampled 40 bottles of wine in one day.
Ooh. So
even not swallowing the wine, you're still going to absorb some of that alcohol through the mouth. So you're still going to pick up a nice little buzz.
It's all right.
Yeah.
It's old school business.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, it is an old school family. So
a hell of an operation up there. It's awesome.
Oh gosh, I love it.
Yeah, if you're in the area for the weekend of March 18th, that'd be a fun thing too. Is that people could check out obviously Carfagna's where Nate's working now and go up to the restaurant. They've got the tastings going on and everything like that. So you could always do. Friday is the Patty's Day party at Fido Irish Pub, which is our partner in the Smoking 10 event and our neighbor. And then hit up the Smoking 10 event, and then Sunday before you head out, maybe head up to Carfagna's and check that out.
Yeah.
You won't be there, unfortunately, but
no,
you know some people.
Yeah.
Aaron Garner says, buy some steaks. There you go.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, if you could package those for the plane ride or the drives home, that'd be great.
Yeah, get a little dry ice in there.
Perfect.
I don't know if they allow that on planes or not.
It's fine. It's fine. Kristen said, did you mention the cute girls handing out the cigars?
You mentioned them by name. You didn't tell them what they were going to be doing, but you did mention them by name.
Right. Yeah. It's keeping me honest. All right. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to talk about in part 2, really. Are you good to roll right through?
Yeah.
All right, guys. I'm going to put the topic up here in the intermission. Once again, is it worth the hype? So we're going to need some, hopefully some people contributing. And I'm going to do the @everyone, which I know people are hating right now Although I did put out
Bobby
why.
Hirschman.
Well, no, but he did. She's like, I appreciate you doing it because that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Let me comment on that. What was that on the community page? I'm getting into part 2 at everyone. Sorry to piss everyone off that don't like that.
Yeah, it's funny. When I'm at the store, I don't sit there and tell everybody and push necessarily the podcast, but I've had several customers that they'll actually, do you know anything about whiskey? Like, well, I do co-host a whiskey and cigar podcast. So, and then they get inquisitive and start asking me, and
nice.
Yeah. So, but I don't sit there and like tell everybody about it. I don't necessarily think my boss would appreciate that one, but
part of the reason they hired you.
That is true. That is true.
All right, let's get into part 2 here. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 259, part 2, Beyond the BS. We are still smoking we're smoking and drinking the Blackened. We are drinking the Blackened whiskey, which is a blend.
It's the only time we've been able to say that in 259 episodes.
We're
smoking and drinking.
Smoking the Drew Estate Blackened M81 Maduro to the core, and that's the only one that really alludes to it a little bit more, with the M81 being on the footband, Metallica being the M, and 81 being when they were formed. The bottle, if you guys haven't listened, you're just now listening to part 2 on the audio. Click over to part 1. Both products have Metallica and James Hetfield specifically as part of the project, and so it's kind of a cool project. The whiskey came first. One of the great blenders, master blender, that did that, Dave Pickerell, and he's passed, but it's been picked up by Rob Dietrich. But Dave Pickerell had a lot of experience with Maker's Mark,
14 years,
also with Whistle Pig.
Yes, he did.
So that was when they were a startup. He was brought in by them, and at least according to Wikipedia, one of our local favorites, he worked with Watershed,
and he was from Fairborn, Ohio.
And he's from Ohio.
Yeah.
So, cool whiskey project. Check it out. Check out part 1 for our conversation and ratings on that cigar as well. And go ahead.
Since you mentioned Whistle Pig, did you know they actually just came out with a piggyback 6-year bourbon?
I had not heard that.
They did. It sold out before I could buy one.
Oh, son of a bitch. I think you know someone. If you guys have any questions, comment on the feed right now live on Facebook or YouTube. I'm going to bring up the comments. I don't see any YouTube comments, but please do share the feed on your Facebook. And then if you have the link for the YouTube and you want to share it to anyone that doesn't have Facebook, definitely do that. But we enjoy the live conversation with all you guys every week, and especially in part 2. Part 1, of course, but part 2 as well, just to see if you guys can contribute to the conversation and help this keep going. Especially when it's just Nate and I, because we can talk, and I know several people like it. Some people really enjoy our conversation, but bringing in the audience is what makes this show a little different than a lot of the other podcasts and even just the live streams on Facebook and YouTube. So we appreciate that. Is it worth the hype? The reason I put that on here tonight for part 2 is because we are smoking and drinking a celebrity, in a way, celebrity endorsed product.
Yeah.
And I would say more times than not, that is a question. Is it worth the hype? Is it worth, that? I think sometimes it does give the product almost, there's a small population, a small demographic that it helps depending on who the celebrity is or who's backing the product. But from the bigger picture, I think it actually hurts it. I can appreciate, like we talked about, both the cigar and the whiskey, they didn't boast Metallica. It doesn't say Metallica's whiskey. It doesn't say, it hints towards some different things.
Well, to that effect, what do you think about all the different celebrity tequila brands?
Same thing. I mean, you see it. I think they push it a little bit more. You know, I don't follow Metallica, so I'm sure I would imagine if they run their social media and they're kind of smart about it, just for the people that follow them, they would have boasted or promoted their whiskey when it came out with new products coming out. They would do the same thing with cigars. It would make sense. Why would you put your name on it and not put anything on there? You know, it's kind of like on a very much smaller scale. It's like me with Tinderbox. There's a lot of things that I'll put, even like today's post, I'll invite myself as a collaborator, so then it just shows up as a shared post between Tinderbox and me.
Mm-hmm.
That has nothing to do with me trying to promote my personal page. That's just something that's easier because, you know, people that know me personally, there's a reason that I think a lot of people that are my friends that would possibly be customers at Tinderbox, they're coming to the 10 event because I am social media wise very much incorporated with Tinderbox.
Mm-hmm.
I know you share some stuff with that. I know some other people share. It just makes sense that if you are doing that in the day and age of social media, why wouldn't you tag your business or share your business that you work for, the podcast? You know what I mean? We've talked about, like, it's like you might as well put that out there. Now, going back to this though, is it worth the hype? I mean, would you think that this whiskey and cigar, I mean, not for people that haven't listened to part 1 and the ratings, do you think this is worth the hype? Not saying that everyone's like screaming about this being the best whiskey, but
when you say that, immediately I start thinking about the whole idea of playing the soundtracks to each batch. I don't think that is worth the hype.
Too gimmicky?
I think it is. However, in order to truly be sure, I think we would have to either sample different batches side by side, or
drink
more
the whiskey with the soundtrack playing.
No, drink their whiskey that hasn't been exposed to the music, and I think that would be a better comparison.
I would agree with you,
because if your average whiskey drinker can't tell the difference between the blend in and of itself versus the blend with the music playing, then what's the point? When you put that on your profile and website,
you can say it, yeah.
But when you put that on your profile and website, like you're trying to convince people and tell people that it has an impact, but it has to be an impact that's notable.
Sure.
If it's not a noticeable impact, then what's the point?
Marketing. It is. So is it worth hype?
Yeah.
How often do you get that question, you know, in the cigar world, and also obviously with your new job with at Carfagna's in the more spirit and wine world? Do you ask, is it worth, do you get asked, is it worth the hype? Is I've heard about this, brand names, or, especially in the bourbon world, it's the Buffalo Trace stuff that you can't get. Is it worth all the hype? Cigar side, it's like, brands like Davidoff, even Drew Estate we're smoking tonight. So the Liga Privadas, some of the Andalusian Bull from La Flor Dominicana, some of those like Opus X from Fuente, these brands that are a little bit harder to find, that's where, is it worth the hype, is I think really accurate. And just for starters, and I love to see where this conversation could go with some people that are listening, but it's like, where are we at with that, with the spirit and the wine side of it, and also cigars?
So I get asked that question more so when it comes to the spirits. There are some well-known brand names in wine. They're not necessarily celebrities, but there's well-established brand names that people will ask, is it worth the hype? But more so, like I said in the intermission, I get asked more often in the tequila side, and it's not just celebrity. It's also sometimes the bottles. And for example,
Sure.
Clase Azul.
Yes.
Clase Azul is that tequila brand that comes in the really ornate bottles, unless you get the Plata. But all the bottles have like a little bell on top of them. That
it looks like a ceramic bottle.
Yes. That you're supposed to be able to strike, and it makes a noise. And people ask, is it worth it? And I'm like, well, I don't know if it's worth it, but I sell 3 or 4 bottles a week. So, obviously some people like it. Some of the higher end stuff, like that's in our lock cabinets, both wine and spirits, people will ask. For example, we've got a bottle of 25-year-old Macallan that's in our cabinet, and people will ask. I'm like, well, don't forget, you're also paying for something that's been sitting in a barrel for 25 years.
That's worth the price, which is sometimes equated to hype.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, and a 25-year-old Macallan it's expensive. It's also 1/10 the price of 50-year Macallan.
Sure.
I had a customer come in on Friday, and he was the first thing he was looking to buy were cigars. And, that's for the people that work in Carfagna's in that department. That's kind of my forte with the department. So they've already noticed an impact with me being there in the short period of time I have been with cigar sales. But I had a guy come in Friday. He first asked me about milder cigars. I sold him on some mild cigars. And then he looks at the top shelf, because I actually reorganized the cigar humidor.
Were you authorized to do that?
I was.
Okay.
I reorganized the
Garner,
humidor.
if you're listening, I'm just checking in.
I reorganized the humidor. Kind of similar how
Aaron's over there in the corner, just like his arms crossed. Like, what the fuck, this new guy?
No, I reorganized it kind of like how some of the tinderbox is set up, where it's like mild to full,
all right,
left to right.
We're technically competition, so take it easy.
But we're not getting the same clientele. But I did reorganize that, but I did leave some of the higher end ones up at the top, which include, like Cohiba Macassar, Padron Anniversary. But I also had
good Cohiba.
I also had the a partial box of Opus Lost Cities. And the guy asked me, like, hey, is that cigar actually worth $50 a pop?
Okay.
And I was like, well, it's a very good cigar. It's rare. It's hard to find. They only do so many boxes a year. And he had told me that he was buying stuff for a guy's weekend. And I was like, this is kind of one of those cigars where if you show up for a guy's weekend and you're passing out this cigar, and I literally, because we had one of our wine barrels that has a tabletop on it.
Yeah.
I literally sat there and went, getting that cigar and passing it out is kind of like
easy.
That kind of move.
Easy.
And he goes, all right, I'll take all 4 of them that you have left.
So what
kind of a show off.
Yeah, I was gonna. What was the gesture for those on the audio?
Like you're kind of showing.
Just lay on the table.
You're showing off and whipping it out.
Okay.
And
I see what you said there.
Yeah, that guy also ended up buying 9 very good bottles of wine, as well as a $350 bottle of whiskey. I mean,
okay.
This guy dropped money for this guy's weekend.
Yeah, like a guy's weekend, sometimes it's like, are they going to be drunk and not remember it, or do you want to like try to impress people? Like, what's the crowd? You got to know your audience, right? I mean, that's a big part of this, is that you need to know your audience. But I think with like, is it worth the hype? And I phrased it I don't want to say it's a bad way, but I mean, you're gravitating towards the price, right? Which I think where the term worth is, it means it makes sense, Is it worth the hype when it comes to the price? Is it worth, like the Opus stuff, or the higher price stuff? It's like I hear that these certain brands they're the most expensive. Does that mean they're better than the others?
You would really have to be a connoisseur in that field. I mean, there are some tequilas, for example, that I know are just as good, if not better, than the most expensive tequilas that we have. But those, like the Clase Azul, that's one of those. There are people that legitimately like it for what's inside the bottle. There's also people that buy it because of the name.
Sure.
A lot of the other tequilas that we have in the store, especially the celebrity ones, most of them are still middle of the road priced. Like Terramana by The Rock, that's in the 30s.
That's lower price for
Well, like that's in the 30s. We have P. Diddy or Puff Daddy, depending on which generation you're in.
Sean Combs.
There you go. That one is also kind of similarly priced to Terramana.
What's his?
Oh shit! It begins with a D.
I didn't mean to test it.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head.
All right.
You also have Kylie Jenner's tequila, the 818.
Got Clooney, the classic, the Casamigos.
Well, he sold it, but yes,
but his name's still on the bottle, if I'm not mistaken. Did they take it off?
I'd have to look at the back of the bottle to see. That's one of those that kind of really started the whole celebrity tequila thing.
Yeah.
Sammy Hagar no longer.
Sammy Hagar.
He sold Cabo Wabo, I believe.
He's got a hand with Guy now.
Yeah.
In the starts with an S.
I can't remember it off the top of my head.
We'll get there.
And then you have Eva Longoria, which I didn't know she had one. That one starts out at like $60-$70. So that one's actually a higher priced tequila. And then you have LeBron James tequila as well. That one's more moderately priced.
You got Michael Jordan with the other 4 owners, the Centauro.
I don't think we carry that one.
Yeah, that's high priced. That's high priced. That's 100 plus.
Yep, we don't carry that one.
Jonathan Herring says I bought the Terramana last week.
Not Kylie. Thank you, Kristen. She would know. No.
Yeah, she would. She would. Jonathan, what Terramana did you get? I like the Terramana stuff. I am a fan of the Rock. He's getting a little bit less. I don't know. Like I don't know. He's getting farther out there. I don't know. I like the Terramana stuff.
Yeah,
I like what he's doing.
But one of the bad things with that particular industry,
Sincoro, Beth Hism says Michael Jordan's Sincoro.
Oh yes, we do own that. That's actually lower priced than Clase Azul. That starts out at $89.
Okay, starts out at
yeah.
It's up there though. I mean, I know like the Reposado.
But even the most expensive Sincoro that we have in the cabinet is cheaper than the most expensive Clase Azul that we have.
Nice.
But they're both pushing, like $1,500 to $2,000.
Sure. Jonathan Herring says for the Terramana, he got the extra Añejo. I've only had the Añejo. I didn't know there was an extra Añejo, but I'm a fan of that, especially for the price point. Going back to the bourbon side of things, again, worth the hype. Partially the price, right? So the tequila world is, I would say, not quite the secondary market as the bourbon world. So
true. One of the things I was getting ready to say, though,
one
of the bad things with the celebrity, run to make tequilas is, that those agave plants, a lot of the celebrity brands, because of the money backing them, are buying up so much of the agave that some of your more established brands that have been around for decades can't get enough to keep up with production. So it's actually hurting the production of some of the ones that have been around and some of the smaller families that have owned that brand for generations. Because
I can see that. And I can also see the other side of it where it's just like the cigar world and everything and some of the other celebrity endorsed stuff here, right? Where it's like they are getting a piece of the pie, but it's like, how big are you going? Are you buying the agave? Are you buying the tobacco? Are you buying the products? Or are you actually buying and creating a factory?
Mm-hmm.
And employing people, or are you just doing it through and you're just a celebrity endorsement and you want your cut? I don't know as much of that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, for example, it's all sourced.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you are taking a share of the market, not only on the shelf, but also from the creation side of things, right? So I think that's part of it as well. I mean, if you have someone out there that's actually buying a farm, you're buying the factory, you're investing in that. You're not necessarily taking away from anyone else. You're actually just investing into that population where they're at. I did see that, Ann commented, Ann Dimmick from OHLQ here, been on the show several times. She was weighing in on the bourbon side of things and the hype, right?
Oh gosh, I get asked about that stuff every freaking day.
So weighing in on the hype. Yes, Buffalo Trace products are great examples of what a heritage distillery produces at a great price if you can get it. And there are some exceptional shelfers that are often overlooked and also amazing. I would agree with that. Worth the hype. You go to like a Buffalo Trace, which is something that is absolutely a hyped product. Buffalo Trace, some of the Weller products, Eagle Rare, definitely worth the hype. If you can get a bottle of Eagle Rare for $35-$40, yes, I think it's worth the hype.
Yeah.
You buy it for $99 or above, it's the product is still worth the hype. I don't think it's necessarily worth what people are charging for it.
Yeah.
I think you've gotten to the point where I think that they are just sucking the market dry.
Well, my boss earlier this week.
So it is a worth the hype at $40. Is it worth the hype at the new price of $100 or beyond? Pappy, is it worth the price of a 23-year at $299, or is it worth it at $4 or $5 grand or whatever it's selling for now? It's worth the hype at $300. Is it worth the hype at $4 or $5 grand? It goes back to your customer that was coming in, and it's like, is it worth this? I'm trying to impress people. Yeah, you're going to impress people if you have a bottle of Pappy 23 on your shelf, for sure.
Yeah.
And if they ask what you paid for it, depending on the audience there, if you say, yeah, I paid, $5 grand for this, you're like, oh, wow. Can I have some? Yeah, you can. Yeah, for sure you can. Now it's worth the hype for them because they're drinking in their mind, a $5,000 bottle of something that they've heard of, and they heard it's like the best and so hard to find. So the worth factor is always, I guess, subject to who you are and what the purpose is of it, right?
Yeah. So, earlier this week, my boss had sent me an article, and it was about whiskey. And every year, this guy comes out with this article and list of the top 10 most desired bourbons in the world, not just the U.S., but in the world. This year, and according to his article, it was the first time ever. All 10 of them were Buffalo Trace products. All 10. Every single one of them. I'm like, is this guy getting paid by Sazerac? Like, what the heck? Because I get people that come in because, we put our allocated stuff out, on a certain day, certain time when we open. But throughout the entire week, multiple people a day come in asking for those same products.
Yeah.
Like, do you have Blands? Do you have Buffalo Trace, Weller,
sure.
Eagle Rare, EH all that stuff? And I'm like, no, it's an allocated. We only get so much. We can't, they just send us what they send us. We can't really order it. They just send us, the state sends us whatever they want.
Sure.
I was like, I try, and this about me, Steve. I love going into a whiskey store and finding bourbons that I can get at any liquor store, anywhere in the state, and also for a reasonable price.
You love a good deal.
But that's
who doesn't though?
Yeah. There's a lot of bourbons out there that I can buy for $20, $30, $40 that can be put up against some of those other ones.
For those that have listened to the podcast and Nate on this podcast for the amount of time you've been on here, I will say that you've evolved, I guess would be the best term, is that you loved the budget bottles. That was like you were seeking it out. And I'm not saying that you're paying like ungodly amount for your new ones, but you don't mind spending $60 on a bottle to try it.
Like that Uncle Nearest rye last week.
Yeah, like that would be a great example because you listen back to that. We both liked it a lot.
Yeah, we did.
So, but it's like that has changed. I'll give you that, where it's like you go through again that journey on some of the stuff is that you would just like, I'm not going to spend $60 on something I've never tried. And now, before it was like, oh, I love like when old Granddad 114 was finally on the shelf, you're like all day long, let's go. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, $20-some, let's go, $30, let's go. Now you've gotten to the point where it's like, you're not getting out of hand, but you are trying to, I guess, broaden it a little bit.
Part of that is also because the podcast, trying to bring on products that we haven't featured on the podcast, especially things that are new in the area.
Based on for that fact, just like when I was at the store today, when I was like, all right, I grabbed the Blackened Cigar, I'll grab the bottle, unless Kroger by me had something else. And I see it and I go, oh, they do have the Black. And I look at the shelves and I go back to it. I'm like, $50. Like, God damn it. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things, like, because we had sipped on it. It's like little, it was like, it's okay. But $50. I don't know.
Well, and I remember
It's not as worth the hype.
It was Brian at the Tinderbox that
Go ahead.
had brought in a bottle of the Blackened, and he was letting us try it because the bottle he had, which I think was actually gifted to him, he didn't necessarily care for it because he thought it was too sweet, which for him, that's not his palate. His palate is more, the cinnamon, the spice. That's why he loves Willet Pot Still. That's why he liked one of the Watershed single barrels that I brought over. Both. So you had Dino Tripodis of Whiskey Business. His single barrel pick was coming in at 119 proof. And then I had that other, quote unquote hazmat bottle that I picked up that was 142 proof. And he absolutely loved it because that was the flavor profile that he likes. He doesn't necessarily like, Tim Dodge, I agree with you. Fireball, yep, no, that's not really. But guess what? They sell a shit ton of Fireball. People drink it, people like it, people buy it. That's paying someone's pension. But I still tell people when they come into the shop, I was like, okay, I know what you're looking for. Like, especially people that come in and they're looking for Weller. Okay, that's a weeded bourbon. We don't have any Weller right now. We have Larceny. That's a weeded bourbon. Try that. It's regular, it's a good price. It's under $30 a bottle still. It's a weeded bourbon. I'm not saying it's going to taste the same as a Weller Special Reserve or Antique, but it's something that's readily available. I also get people that look for Weller Antique 107, and I'll tell them, because you mentioned it, the Old Granddad 114. I will buy Old Granddad 114 over Antique 107.
And I won't.
I know you won't. And it's not because of the price necessarily, or I shouldn't say it's not just because of the price difference. Old Granddad 114 is $32.99 in the state of Ohio. Antique is still $49.99. But I can go into most liquor stores and find Old Granddad.
That makes sense.
And I think too many people in the spirit world, also the cigar world as well, they fall in love with the stuff that's hard to get and they can't come off that pedestal.
I would agree with that overall, for sure. For me, when I look at like the Buffalo Trace stuff, it's, Eagle Rare. I love Eagle Rare.
Mm-hmm.
So here was one, and we can stay on the bourbon and cigars and spirits and cigars. Wine's the same way, right? You hear of a winery that everyone knows about, like a Camus or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth the hype? Yeah, it's. Do you like it?
Yeah.
That's up to you to decide. But I will say we were drinking a rye within the last month or so, and after the podcast, I came out and did, kind of turned the tables on Nate on, what do you think of this? And brought out 2 Glencairns with his blind taste testing.
Yeah.
And I forget what we were drinking that night, but it was definitely more expensive than what I brought out, right?
Yeah.
And he took a sip of it, and if I recall correctly, your reaction was like, "Wow, this is definitely, in your opinion, was better."
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, "Wow, this is nice. This is really like what yeah, this is good." And he said, "Well, what is it?" And I said, "That's Sazerac Rye."
Yeah.
And I had gotten the bottle for, I think that bottle was $25 in Chicago. I got $29.99 here. That's worth the hype. Sazerac Rye, Buffalo Trace product. Like that's like that at $30. If you can find it, it's a shame that you can't find it. Like I make a comment sometimes. I wish I could find from Buffalo Trace, Sazerac Rye. Buffalo Trace itself, yes. Eagle Rare at the suggested retail for sure. You said Weller 107. Those two, like Sazerac Rye and Eagle Rare, if that was readily available, as if you walked in and you're looking for a bottle of Jameson,
or I'd get a bottle at least every month.
Keep the bourbon side. Maker's Mark, you know what I mean? Like weeded bourbon. Like it was like, if you can find that, if it was sitting next to it, yeah, that's worth the hype, because the price is not really a factor there. It's just the fact what's in the bottle compared to what's being out there. And I think it could drive the price up, but that's worth the hype. I think you think of these luxury brands on the cigar bourbon side, you think of, you know, I don't know, like cars, clothes, like material things, right? You know what I mean? Is it worth the hype?
Cadillac. Yeah.
Cadillac. It's funny being, you know, I love Cadillac for, you know, different reasons, but it's like, what do you want out of a car? What do you want out of, you know, clothing? What do you want out of a house? What do you want out of the stuff you enjoy? And I think that's where it's up to you. And I think that's something I've learned over time with, you know, being in the cigar industry, is that, you know, are some of these products that are really hard to find, are they the expensive ones? Are they worth the hype? When you talk about price, you know, a bottle of bourbon or a spirit or a wine, cigars, especially for me, like, you know, when we have like the Davidoff Royal release, it's $99.99.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a little bit off the is it worth the hype? Is it worth the price type thing? Because a lot of people, it's kind of the same, right? It's really equivalent to a lot of people, but it's like, is it worth it? Well, it's like, well, it's tough. I'm a tough person. Is it 10 times better value wise than a $10 cigar? No, I don't think it is. You know, I think that, you know, like looking at some of the other things of like we were talking about, price is not always going to make it better to you. You know what I mean? Like it's what's important to you. What do you enjoy? Like you brought up like Cadillac. It's like, that's not even like the luxury brand anymore. It's a luxury American brand, which is kind of shit on by a lot of people. You know what I mean? But it's like, are all those features worth it? Well, no, but now your Chevy, like you drive, we talked about before, like your Chevy Cobalt with roll up windows and everything else. Like you buy a Chevy now, it's $40,000.
Yeah.
Because it has a lot of the same features that the luxury cars, because that's expected now.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about like the power windows. I'm talking about like, you know, Bluetooth. It's the safety features. It's heated seats. You got a heated steering wheel. You know, some of them have like heads up displays. It's, you know, you got the updated or upgraded like suspension. And it's like, yeah, your Chevy rides like a Cadillac now. You know, it's like Lexus and Toyota. It's like, what's the difference? The badging and maybe a couple extra things. Like you have to actually, when you do all that stuff on the lower end products, the whiskeys, the cigars, now the challenge is it worth the hype of the upgrade in the brand? Would you rather buy it, like if you're driving a Lexus or a Toyota, is it worth the sticker of a Lexus? Did they make it worth it? So when you say, like, no, I can get all the same features on a Toyota that I can on this Lexus. And I remember I looked at way back to go down this path a little bit. I leased a 2006 Honda Accord that was fully loaded, right? And at the time, that car was a V6, and the sticker on it was $27,500. The base model Acura that was the same level, I think it was a TSX or whatever, was actually more expensive with less features. And it's like, okay, is it worth the hype of driving an Acura that has less features and then the fully loaded lesser brand name? I think that's part of the conversation here.
Well, I think sometimes when it comes to cars, when you have cars made by the same parent company like Chevy and Cadillac, what is, you know, the premium package for the lower, or let me rephrase that. I think you're on the right track. What your Cadillac has when you bought it is probably something, you know, for your model, is probably some of the same stuff that Chevys ended up having like 7 years later.
Sure.
I got into that discussion with someone about GM pickups, Silverado versus GMCs. Like, because I remember when GMC first came out and you had that 6 configuration tailgate or whatever, it was only available on GMC trucks.
Right.
Now, there's already difference between like the frame and stuff between those two brands. But I was sitting there going, why is GM only going to put this really nice high-end tailgate on their high-end truck and not the Silverado when it's the same company? Well, then fast forward several years later, now you can get that same tailgate on a Silverado.
Because they've made the money back, hopefully business-wise, that it wasn't available. They were smart, right? They come up with that. They put it on everything. Then why would you buy the more expensive one? Is it worth the hype at that point?
Yeah.
You know, you talk about these luxury brands, and I know she's going to listen to this either now or later, but it's like,
BMW?
No, not BMW.
Oh.
But I'm really debating if I should talk about this, but let's talk about like luxury brands. And, with Kristen, and I'm the same way with like certain things, like, I've got, Bose speaker, as opposed to getting a cheaper one. It's like, I really enjoy that. And one of the things is I expect it to last, like that Apple HomePod I had that, basically 2.5 years later, it turned into a paperweight.
Yeah.
Not worth the hype, because I enjoyed it while I had it. But when I thought that this was going to last me for a while, that it didn't.
Oh, yeah.
And I was very, very frustrated, right? With Kristen and some of her friends, it's like the purses, right? It's something that they really like to, that's something that they spoil themselves on. Is it worth, like you're carrying a purse, shoes are different because you want to feel supported. So like a hoodie, right? Something like that. Same thing with the purse. The purpose of it is that you like the look of it and it keeps you warm, or it holds your belongings. Is it worth the luxury brand hype to pay that much more? And she can comment, I'm listening. Here we go. Is it worth that much more? And I'll say this is that
she says, yes, it is.
Well, I'll say this on her behalf. She had a very nice purse. I'm not going to throw out brand names. She had a very nice purse that she took care of. It's kind of like the bourbon world. She actually sold it for what she paid for it years later, so that she could buy something else. So it's, again, there's a market there. But again, is it worth the hype? I mean, it's like,
well, I mean, so speaking of clothes, like, for example,
I'm trying to not trying to single out Kristen, right? Like, I'm just trying to say, like, is it worth the hype? Is it worth? It's not worth. If you can't really afford something, it's not worth the hype.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you can afford it, or if you do it in a smart way, or you look at it from I want to do this, and I'm not trying to single her out, but it's same thing. It's like you buy again, a Bose speaker versus, something you buy off of Amazon for a fraction of the price. Is it worth it? Maybe not. But for me, it was, because now I'm happy with what I have, and I can listen to music and I like the sound of it.
Well, I mean, so a couple examples. For me personally, like before I was married, there were times where, I bought jeans at Walmart.
Nothing wrong with that.
And after a year, there's holes in them. You got pockets, starting to come apart, and seams are coming apart. But they were cheap, and you got
your money's worth.
I got my money's worth out of them.
Not a whole lot of hype behind Walmart jeans, though.
But like the jeans I'm wearing now, which is this is the second pair of these jeans that I have. I still have the other pair because now I just have two pairs of them. A lot more expensive.
What's the brand?
Kimes.
I don't even know that one, man. I didn't know you're so bougie.
Well, so they're really made for people in the equestrian field. Just the way they're cut and everything. These jeans are so much more comfortable, and they last so much longer. And I can absolutely beat the crap out of them, and they still last. They still, throw them through the wash. They still look fine. So that's one of those things that I learned, like, buy quality. It lasts a little bit longer.
You want it to.
You want it to. I also remember when I was single and buying food, I would buy a pack of steaks that were the cheapest I could find. And they weren't the best cuts. They didn't necessarily taste the best. I also wasn't cooking them properly. I found out later on. And once I met Jess and we started buying quality cuts, it tastes so much better. It makes the meal worth the extra money.
If you can afford it, that's where it comes back to it. And again, like neither of us are rolling in it, but I mean, again, you do it in a smart way. That's kind of where I'm at with all of that. You bring up like jeans and stuff, like you want to make sure you do your research still. Is it worth the hype? Not always. I think that, you can. Kristen just texted me, life is too short for shitty wine. I've heard that in the cigar side of it too, is you're going to smoke, you know what I mean? You want to smoke good cigars, right? Why would I smoke shitty cigars the same way? Well, again, there is I think a bit of an equation with that sometimes is you don't want to necessarily smoke $20 cigars if you're smoking 3 or 4 a day.
Yeah.
Whether or not you can afford it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you can afford it, it's you really need to be able to afford it.
Well, I had a customer.
You don't want to be spending. You don't want you to look at if you ever look back at your monthly spending and you're like, holy shit, man, my cigar budget or my bourbon and my wine budget is like, it's way out of whack. It's like, well, either you need to scale back your smoking, drinking, your spending on clothes, you're spending on whatever,
less.
or consume less, or you can always find something. You brought up like this cigar, the price point on it being just below average, just slightly below average at that 10. It's a lot of people that sounds like a lot still. $10 for a cigar that lasts you an hour or whatever. But compared to what you could be smoking, if you find something that you can smoke to kind of, I'm going to smoke what I like or drink what I like. And then on the other side of it, when I'm in the mood for wine, I hope I can find like a $10 bottle as opposed to a $60 bottle or whatever it might be. You know what I mean?
Or like the bottle that I gave Kristen that she actually tried tonight. Like she actually really enjoyed that bottle. If she came into Carfagna's and I wasn't working there and she saw that bottle on the shelf for what it's stickered at, she probably wouldn't buy it. But that's because she doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, and that's about doing research on the items.
When I sat there and
trying it, going back to is it worth the hype? You have to try it.
Yeah, when I sat there and told her about that product and why it was actually a really good product for the money.
Yeah.
Then she tried and she goes, yeah, this is actually really good.
Yeah. Even if it's just decent. If you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like you're not blowing your socks off on every time you sip on that, but it's like, you know what? Like it's pretty good. Not bad. Even if you say like, that's not bad for the price.
Yeah. Which Kristen, if you're still listening, since you had a rosé tonight, in case you didn't know, Kylie Minogue has 2 different rosés.
Sure, she already knows that. She already knows that. She's a celebrity and she has some good rosés. No, I look at that the same way, and I go back to it's an easy equation for us. Again, when I get my hands on a bottle of like an Eagle Rare, right? It's one of those things that I don't want to finish the bottle because I don't know when I'm going to get my hands on another one, but I don't have a problem necessarily sharing it or looking at it like, I got half a bottle. Like, let me get a pour of Eagle Rare from my own bar, because I also look at it as like, I only spent $35, $40 on that. If I spent the $100 secondary price, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Like when I was in Chicago and I bought the 3 bottles of Buffalo Trace for $31 a piece, like that was fair. And he gave me that store pick that we tried. And it's like, I don't mind dipping into that because that is worth the hype. Because I think the key word there is the worth part. Now we got you. Point. Bobby Hirschman, I think he's trying to stir the pot a little bit. I think he's just reacting, but.
Oh, what? That doesn't sound like Bobby at all.
He's like, when I was talking about it, he's like, why would you bring it up then if I was talking about like the purses and stuff like that? Well, I think it's relative.
Or relevant. Either one.
Relevant. Yeah. All right. No, I think the hype is sometimes definitely overblown, and I think it's what's important to you. But I will say that, with some of this stuff, you'll never know until you try something. People talk about like even like, I don't know, like fad diets, fad workouts, all that stuff. It's the same thing. Is it worth going through all that stuff? And it's like, I don't know if it is. Vacations, these spots that someone's, oh, it's the best thing I ever went, like best place I ever went to. And you go there and you're like, I've been better places. But you don't know until you actually try it. Or you actually do some research and figure it out. Is it worth the hype? And I did phrase it like that because I think with like what we're smoking and drinking and what kind of influenced the part 2 here is that it wasn't necessarily the value side. I didn't put it as, is it worth the price? Because a lot of times it's not. Especially the things that are really hyped up. I don't think it is. I think a lot of the times people will be, if you say, is it worth the price? I hear of like, we've been talking lately about like steakhouses and stuff like that. You go to some of these newer ones and all that stuff. Is like, is it worth the price of these steaks? Well, no, it wasn't, because it came out, it wasn't cooked right, and the experience was bad. And no, I won't go back.
Well, okay, to that point, like, we go to a certain restaurant for my birthday every year.
Sure.
And is, quite pricey. We go there pretty much once a year, and it's for my birthday. Is that steak that I get, like you talked about the $100 cigar versus the $10 cigar, is it worth 10 times the amount? Same thing with steak. Is that $50 steak 5 times as good as my $10 fillet that I get or whatever? Like, no, it's not, but I'm also not sitting there buying a $50 fillet every week. It's a special occasion type thing. When I make dinner for Jess's birthday, I buy bigger fillets than I normally do, or sometimes I've done dry aged. I also buy scallops and make those. Like, I don't do that every week. It also takes away from it being special if we did that every week.
No, it'd still be special. If it's good and it is worth the hype, it's still special. You're just spoiling yourself at that point.
Okay.
No, I think it is like, you go out to a restaurant, right? I think it goes back to your sources, right? I think you really have to trust who's telling you it's worth it. If you're looking at like online, if you're listening to a podcast like this and they're just pumping it up and everything like that, if you have listened to that review, or if you've read that, if you know the person, you share their, like, you've actually been out to dinner with them, you know that like you share a common, I guess, understanding of what is worth it, that the source is a big part of this. Is that, yeah, hopefully we enjoy it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you just listen to like reviews, you listen to all random people out there, your whole source system is way off whack, and I don't think that you should trust that. I think that's the big thing about this, is that you go back to the core, the first part of this podcast with the spirits of the wine, the cigars, is like, is it worth the hype? More times than not, it's not. I think it's been hyped up because of some reason.
Mm-hmm.
You hope that if everyone's raving about something, it's about like a bottle or a steak or a cigar. It's about the flavor. It's about the quality of the product, the presentation. If you go to a place, that's always hyped up, the steakhouse, the cigar lounge, whatever it is, and everyone's like raving about this place, and you go in there and you get bad service. And even if the product is okay, but the service sucked, it wasn't worth it.
No.
I think it's about the experience. And I think that's where it comes down to with, like, is it worth the hype? I think the experience is really a big part of it. Is, did you enjoy yourself while you were smoking the cigar, drinking the whiskey, drinking the wine? Did you enjoy yourself at the steakhouse? You even go shopping at like a retail store. Is it worth it? Is part of the price, is it built in that the service is part of that price? And I think that goes a long way, that we're coming back to. I think we lost that for a while, and we're still struggling with that, because now it's, is the website or the app, is it easily navigated? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's their return policy like if I don't like what I'm buying? Is that built into the price? I think the experience is a huge part of all of this.
Well, and to that effect, that's actually one of the reasons why I was brought on at Carfagna's. I mean, last year they were named by the Columbus Dispatch as the best wine store in Columbus, Ohio. I wasn't there for 2022, so I had nothing to do with that. But my boss had told our team, you know, in order to be the best wine shop in Columbus for 2023, we can't do the same thing we did in 2022. We have to do something different. And that's actually where I came in.
Sure.
Was, you know, my job is not to be behind the wine bar pouring wine flights for customers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what I'm supposed to do. It's not what I'm trained on. It has nothing to do with me whatsoever. My job is to be on the floor, kind of like how all of us at the Tinderbox are, on the floor asking customer questions and trying to make a recommendation that fits what they're looking for. That's part of my job.
That's old school retail, man.
It is. It's an old school way of thinking about
That's
it.
the Nordstrom way.
You've talked many times about like buying shoes.
You had a book. The Nordstrom way was like that was like classic retail.
Yeah. I mean, you would go in to look at a pair of dress shoes, and there was someone there to work with you and help you find the right style of shoe or the right fit for you.
Yeah,
it was more personalized service.
You're going back to that side of things where, you know, places, even the department stores had kind of shied away from it because this is going back 20 years, maybe more, where it's like, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. But like a store like a Kohl's, like those types of department stores where you basically had to do the shopping yourself, and there was maybe a person that was kind of working a counter, or you might be lucky that they're asking like, hey, what are you looking for? Like, do you want me to? No, they started like shoes, like DSW. It's like you do all the work.
Mm-hmm.
It was the gateway to the self-checkout, right? So this is the gateway to the Amazon, right? This is the whole thing. Where I remember when I was buying the nicer shoes, like you're talking about, at Nordstrom, they even if you knew your shoe size, do you mind if I like measure your foot? Sure. It had been a long time since someone had done that. I mean, like when I used to be like a kid, you know what I mean? Like with my mom going shoe shopping, like that happened, you know what I mean? Because your foot is growing, and yeah, no, I'm a 7. Like, no, now you're an 8. Like, because you're growing, you know what I mean? But like, even as an adult, that was a big thing, is that you want to make sure that if you're buying a good pair of shoes, you're buying a good bottle of wine or whiskey. It's like, you want some, like, not everyone does anymore, but it's appreciated, I think, by the consumer, that's part of the experience, is that you have some sort of, almost like someone's curating this for you, you know what I mean? And that was that experience that at the Nordstrom was, I had a guy that when I was buying like nicer shoes, he was getting transferred to, like, he was the assistant manager of the shoe department at the Nordstrom by me. He got a promotion and was going down to Cincinnati at a different mall, Nordstrom. And he literally gave me his business card. He's like, yeah, this is the last time you're going to see me, but, you know, just email me or, you know, send me what you're looking for. I'll send you 3 pairs of shoes that I think you're going to like. And, you know, yeah, you will have to pay for them, but just, you can send them back or just return them to this store, the ones you don't like, and we can just do it that way. Because he worked off commission, but he went above and beyond. And he's like, I think I know what you like. So you send me some, and I know your size, and you're in the system. And that kind of personal touch is ridiculous.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think where you're at, you know, at Carfagna's, and I think this is a kind of a missed aspect of a lot of stores, is you trust that person.
Mm-hmm.
You know that they know what you like, that you trust them. Same thing with cigars, you know, any service industry, anytime you're working with someone that's doing something for you, is that they're going to be able to bring that personal touch. And they actually, I'm not saying they necessarily always care about you, but they care about the business transaction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned a particular brand of wine. You know, I've had some customers come in, they're like, yeah, I really like this wine, but I don't feel like spending that kind of money. Oh, well, did you know they also make this bottle? Which, so you said Camus.
Mhm.
Camus is, on our shelf, it's a $94 bottle of wine. It's a Cab Sav, $94. Well, hey, did you know they also make this red blend, and it's $35?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if you don't feel like spending $90 or $100 on this, but you like what they do, here's an option for you that you can, afford more easily. Like, you can buy 3 bottles of this for the same price as that one bottle, and
buy one of these and then buy 2 of these. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you like this and you don't want to buy necessarily a case of this wine. So buy 1 or 2 of the ones you know you like that are higher priced. But, and you recommend this. And sure enough,
I had a customer.
You're not going to convert them necessarily, but you're going to be like, I did really like that. So I do want to have a little bit of both.
I had a customer come in last week. It was him and his girlfriend. They came in, they were doing a wine tasting, and they were, talking about wines. And I had mentioned to the boyfriend, I was like, hey, do you like this style of wine? He goes, yeah, I really do. And immediately the girlfriend goes, yeah, but every time we come in here, I feel like we spend $200. I'm like, well, here, try this. And I literally pulled a glass, pulled a bottle, and I was like, I'm going to pour you a sample of it. Try that. And he
now
goes,
you're spending $300.
No. He goes, I really like that. And I was like, good. Here's the price point of that. He walked out with a case and didn't spend, he spent less than a quarter of what they normally spend when they come in there. But he then came back this week and bought another case.
Okay.
So it was getting him to try something that he likes, but he had never tried that particular one before. He bought it, and then he bought it again because I made that recommendation and allowed him to try it. Now that brings more confidence because he knows our staff is going to actually recommend things that they're going to like.
Well, and you can always throw in, like, when was the last time you actually had one of those bottles that you really, when we first met, that you really liked? Like, yeah, it's been a while. I'm like, you're right. I probably should actually get a couple of those to throw in the mix for the special occasions.
And it also translates into cigars. We get a lot of regulars that come in and, we take care of them. We make great recommendations. And then, say we get a new cigar in, we're like, hey, we got this new cigar in. It may not necessarily be the same price point that you normally get.
Yeah.
But based on our experience together, I think you're really going to enjoy it. They smoke it and they're like, you were right. They buy it again, but they keep coming back because of that personal experience and you taking care of the customer. They feel like every time they walk in the door there, that person's going to make the best recommendation that they can.
Yeah, I think that's the hype that's worth it is did you enjoy the experience all around, all factors, right? I mean, you want to, when you are going somewhere where you're spending your money, is it worth the hype? It will be if you trust the source, and it also will be if the whole experience is good. Even Tim Dodge threw it out there, is that sometimes it's about the experience of the company you're in. I think that's an aspect of it as well. I mean, you can have great meals, you can have great food, you can have great products, whatever the material possession is, but is the experience or even the follow-up experience, does it stay in that realm of worth the hype? I brought it up recently about like the Apple store. You know what I mean? It's like I started going back to Apple products. It was like the fact that, like, oh yeah, they last and they support you as you hold on to their product. They're not just trying to sell you a brand new one every time. That has changed, because I feel like you get in that that mode where it's like it's cheaper to just buy something new or to try something else, as opposed to just staying loyal and realizing what's actually important, which is the experience as a consumer. And I think that's a big part of it. looking at all this.
I know, we're just checking on some of the comments. And
what about non-material things?
Well, I actually had written down a couple.
I.e., is prom worth the hype? Is a wedding worth the hype?
So, okay. My junior prom.
Disneyland.
No. My junior prom was not
been thrown out here.
My junior prom was absolutely not worth the hype. Senior prom? Yes. Junior prom? Not so much. What was a wedding? So, like,
if you listen to the podcast before, you know the story, but yeah.
We had an absolutely fantastic wedding and reception. And like, sometimes I tell people what we spent for our wedding. They're like, wait, that's it? And I'm like, yeah. And here's what we got for all of that. And they're like, how the hell did you manage that? Like, maybe we got lucky. Maybe we just, and those options are out there. It's just maybe options that not everyone considers. Cause I mean, we spent, I think less than $8,000 on everything for our wedding: dress, tux, the wedding venue, the reception. And like for the reception, we had so many people complimenting us on what the meal was and the options for that. And, we had options for the kids. We had options for the one vegetarian that was there, Miguel. But so many people complimented us on everything, and we didn't go nuts. Like we actually made Buckeye candies at home, and we put those in little bags for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fairly inexpensive gift to give people, but yet everyone appreciated it, and it went over really well. On the flip side, there's a guy that I know who owns his own cigar shop that for his wedding and groomsmen gifts, he's spent over $60,000.
Yeah. Someone just said they spent what you spent on flowers and booze. I think hence the question.
Is it worth the hype? But I do remember one of the funniest things about our wedding reception is one of the bridesmaids didn't like the fact that the bar didn't have their favorite kind of whiskey. They literally left the reception, drove to a liquor store, bought the bottle, and brought it back.
Who did?
One of the bridesmaids at my wedding.
They did, not the bar.
Yes.
Yeah. With weddings and prom, you do like, again, prom, I think it's possibly a, you're young, man. You don't know what's worth the hype. You know what I mean? Hopefully you enjoyed yourself. With the wedding, it's like even, Jonathan Herring says, I had a huge wedding and I do think it lived up to the hype. I'm sure, knowing Jonathan, I love you, man, but I'm sure someone had to tell you it was worth the hype at the end of it. You know what I mean? But as long as you had a good time and everything turned out well, again, it's what's important to you.
Yeah. We literally, for our wedding, we had 120 to 130 guests for our wedding. One person complained about something.
Sure.
And they complained that we didn't have a DJ. But everyone else that talked to us was thankful we didn't have a DJ, because they could actually sit at the tables and have a normal conversation without having to shout.
Yeah, I think. Good. Sorry.
There was still because we got married in December, there was still music playing throughout the venue, but we didn't. It wasn't loud. It wasn't obnoxious.
Some DJs just suck too.
Oh yeah, we went to a wedding that had a DJ. My wife and I still joke about it to this day.
Worst DJ ever.
It was. And what's funny is the next day, I had posted on social media, and I just said something to the effect of "Wow," and that was it.
Seems like a post from you.
But someone else that
Not
was
cryptic at all.
Someone else that was at the wedding and was actually a bridesmaid that I'm friends with goes, "Oh, were you thinking the same thing I was?" It's like, yeah, that was a fucking train wreck.
Jonathan says, we were lucky to have my father-in-law pay for it. Definitely helped with the stress. Yeah, worth the hype for sure. Someone else is, paying the bill.
Yeah.
I again, going back to some of these things like weddings and stuff, it a lot of times it's, you got to know what you want, right? And I think, anymore you can bring in even like, college education. Is it worth the hype? I mean, all these things, someone said, I think Aaron Garner said, spend money on the honeymoon. Yeah, you drop, if you're spending the money on that. I mean, yeah, as we get older, you look back at some of those things, you look at some of the financial side of things. Is it worth spending thousands and thousands of dollars, or would it be smarter? That's a different conversation. Would it be smarter to use the money that you paid for the wedding on like a down payment for a house? Probably, but obviously being smarter with your money is not always the most fun, right? That goes hand in hand. I think that, that's a surprising comment from Bobby Crow even out there.
I know, right?
Kept his wedding under 10K and it's perfect. But I mean, again, I don't know. Worth is the key term here with all these things, and I put it in the hype because again, this was actually branched off of what we were smoking and drinking tonight, where it's a celebrity endorsed product. You know what I mean? And you have some marketing behind it. You have some money behind it. I think from the business side of it is it worth what you're investing into it? And I think that translates to what we're talking about with some of the things here with like, prom, wedding, anything. Is it worth the money you put into it? If you're stretching yourself thin, typically, no, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I think if you can afford it, or if you have a plan beyond that moment or beyond that purchase, sure, you can make it worth it. Do you enjoy it? Does it make you happy? The whole retail therapy thing that was a big thing, and I think it still is again, does it make you feel better to have a bunch of new shit? Yeah, it does. If you can't afford it, that good, that euphoria is very short-lived, because as soon as you have to start paying your credit card bills, or you have to start paying, or you can't afford the next thing because you just spent so much money on that, it's not necessarily worth that. But if it gives you satisfaction in that, again, I digress a little bit from the financial side of things, but you look at, is it worth the hype of, if you eat healthy, if you try to take care of yourself, you're spending money on better food, you're spending money on things like vitamins and stuff like that, where I look around, we've talked about on the podcast before, where it's like, yeah, I look at people, I'm like, how can they afford it? But then they also don't spend any money investing in their health. It's like, oh, that makes sense. What I'll spend in a month on some things that I think are investing in my personal health, whether it be doctor visits or, even like health insurance, whether it be something that I'm like, well, I want to make sure that I'm okay health wise. Is that fun to spend the money on? Absolutely not. And most people will be like, is it worth the hype of being healthy and happy in that sense? No, because they'd rather do something like, and I know it's extreme, but like eat fast food and just do whatever the fuck they want. They want to drink too much. They want to eat whatever they want. They want to not exercise. They want to have fun. They want to play video games. They want to, buy nicer things that they're going to enjoy and show off. It's like, that's more short-lived.
Yeah.
It doesn't last.
No.
But if that makes you happy, that's the big, I think that kind of teetering point is it worth the hype? Does it make you happy to go to that place? Does it make you happy to spend the money on that thing that's literally just a thing? Does it make you happy to spend money on yourself, to spend the hours on yourself? Having a job, there's a guy in the shop today, again, he's been coming in more and more, and he owns a couple businesses, and it was one of those things, it's like, he even said that comment. He asked me, how many days a week are you in here? How often are you in here? I was like, oh, this is my full-time gig, man. It's 5 days a week. Now, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life.
We both know that's.
Well, I looked at him. I was like, I know him a little bit now. And I'm like, yeah, but you say that, and knowing you as little as I know you, still works sometimes, isn't it? And he looked at me and just started laughing. He's like, yeah, you're right. Because it absolutely is.
So that's actually one of the things I'd written down was, worth the hype, the entrepreneur aspect.
Mm-hmm.
One of my friends who also owns a cigar shop, he had actually posted on Facebook today about a customer.
I saw that.
About a customer that came in, and he's like, oh man, I'd love to own my own cigar shop. And he actually then started going on about all the things that go into actually owning that business. And it's like, does this still sound like fun? And I actually made a comment that, is about the owner of the Tinderbox, Brian. Like when Brian started that business, we get people that come into the Tinderbox like, oh man, you work at a cigar shop. That's got to be a great job. And it's like, well, people talk about joke. Sometimes they joke. Sometimes they're serious. Like, oh man, I'd love to own a cigar shop. Once I retire, I'd love to open up a cigar shop. And
if you're retired, why do you want to open a business?
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, I'd made the comment.
Go work at a cigar shop if you're retired.
Exactly. I'd made the comment to my friend's post. I was like, yeah, open up your own business and have to work 7 days a week for the first 6 to 10 years that you're in business, because it takes you that long to actually build up enough business to be able to afford to hire employees, so that way you can take time off. Is it worth that type of an investment? When my dad was a UPS driver, towards the end of his career, he was getting 6 weeks vacation a year. And he would have people on his route going, man, you UPS drivers, you guys you guys got 6 weeks vacation. He goes, yeah, but when you start out at 18 years old, you spend 6 years working part-time in the loading dock, loading up trucks. Then you become a driver and you don't have 6 weeks off. You have 2 weeks off when you first start out, and you got to do it for 20 years before you get to that point. And my dad actually asked this guy, goes, you want to be a UPS driver and do the loading of the trucks and then drive for 20 years and then get the 6 weeks off? He goes, oh no, I don't want to do that. He goes, exactly. You see what I have
now.
Exactly. You see what I'm doing now. You're not seeing everything that went into getting there. You want to shortcut the whole process and do what you see other people doing, but you don't necessarily want to put in the work to get there.
Dude, and when I was at my previous career, it was in the handbook, right? That you hit, what was it? It's like 8 or 10 years, right? I think it was 10 years. You hit 10 years in management, you are entitled to a 4-week sabbatical. It's a small to medium-sized business. When I got there, do you think that I could take a month off from my position?
Not unless you were a tenured professor.
If I took a month off and they had to cover me for a month, they wouldn't need me.
Yeah, exactly. I had a professor.
Is it worth the hype? That was a fucking marketing scheme, like to get me to like look for that.
Yeah.
I got to that point. I could barely take a weekend off or a week off, depending on what time of the year it was. It was like, no, that sounds great. And then it's like, hey, so I'm going to take off the month of October. You're like, wait, what? Well, it's in the handbook. You said like, if I work here long enough, I get a 4-week sabbatical for my mental health, because they were like progressive like that. And then you actually like started talking about it like, oh, well, how are we going to do that? I was like, I don't know. Within a couple of days, I'm like, yeah, I'm not taking that. That's a hype. That's a,
well, like, I mean, we've got a couple of UPS drivers that come into the shop, and we've talked about it with them before. And I know from my dad's experience, from Thanksgiving to New Year's, they're blacked out from taking vacation time. And during that time,
summers, I was blacked out.
And well, yeah, in your industry, in your old industry, absolutely. But yeah, they're blacked out from taking vacation from Thanksgiving to New Year's. And if they have kids who may go on winter break, like they still can't take vacation during that time, because
their kids can go on winter break. They can't.
Exactly. That's their busy season. And not only is it their busy season and they can't take time off, they're also going to be putting in more hours because it's their busy season. So they're kind of limited as to when they can actually take advantage of some of that stuff. One of the other aspects of career that I was thinking about, is it worth the hype, is sales. You hear a lot of people talk about certain industries, the money you can make in sales, whether it be cigar sales, pharmaceutical sales, energy sales, like my old industry, stuff like that. And then you actually go and work in that job, and you don't realize how much pavement you got to pound in order to be able to be successful.
You take time off, you're not making any money.
Yeah. And how much time and energy you have to actually put in to be able to make the kind of money you thought you would be making, because, some people go into a sales and a sales field or whatever, and they see all these other sales reps making six figures, and they start out and they're only making 40, 50, maybe 60 grand a year. And they're like, wait a minute, this isn't what I thought I was going to be doing. It's like, yeah, but these are people that have been doing this for a while. They've built up a book of business.
They put the work in.
Exactly. They've literally put the sweat equity.
Yeah. Builds off of Bobby's.
What'd Bobby say?
The mindset is now, which in my opinion shouldn't be. I've enjoyed the process of buying multiple homes over the years. It doesn't always have to be now. It's a process, and that's why I'm not burnt out. When you rush, you get burnt out, and it makes it to build a functional foundation. Wait.
Functioning foundation.
Functioning foundation. He corrected himself.
Not that big of a difference, but all right.
No, I get it. I mean, but he's absolutely right. I mean, it is what you're saying. It's like you have to put the work in. More recently, I don't know if you saw this. I think it was the UK that actually put it out there that now I'm seeing on the news just recently. This is absolutely something that's pertinent to the topic of, is it worth the hype? The 4-day work week. Have you seen that recently? Do you watch the news still a little bit? But you know what I'm talking about, but it's like, that's the new thing once again, is that, countries are saying that, if you do a 4-day work week, people are happier and their mental health is better. And I was absolutely pleased by the local news here in Columbus, Ohio, that as they were talking about that, these are news anchors, and at first they were like, so they're reporting on this. And of course, they're all cheerful, right? Especially this is like right at the beginning of the 9 o'clock hour. So they're having a good time. They're done with
morning
their day.
News.
You got some morning news.
You got to pep people up for the day.
Yeah, well, they got to this, and they're at the end of their day a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, obviously we couldn't do that. And, it's like, well, yeah, restaurants and retail, they couldn't do that. Like, they're kind of like just in just making conversation about that. Or like, this sounds amazing. Absolutely. But your 4-day work week, you have 3 days off. And it's like, oh, by the way, you can't go to the bank. You can't go to the store because they're on 4-day work weeks. And like, wait, what? It's a quick flashback to like 2020 where it's like everyone should work from home. It's fine. Everyone should work from home. It's like, you don't get any deliveries. You can't go to the grocery store.
Mechanics can't work from home.
Yeah, like you can't do that. It's like, well, I want a 4-day work week. Like, so it's like going back to, is it worth the hype? It's like, yeah, no, if everyone could. And you remember back in the day where Sunday, everything was closed. And I was like, that's a terrible idea because I'm off that day too. It's like, right. Everyone's off on Sunday. That's even a 6-day work week.
Or remember when we went to Louisville and everything was closed on Monday?
Still, yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where it's like, is it worth the hype? Yeah, it would be worth it if it worked, but the hype's not always there. Looking at some comments, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the old brewer, but yeah, this is more recent since he passed away.
Yeah. So to Bobby's comment, yes, you had the original guy, Dave Pickerell, that started with the Blackened Metallica blended whiskey. He passed away. Another guy took it over. But yeah, so this one's actually one of the more recent. This is batch 129. The latest one they've done is 135. So this is more recent because they did 30 plus batches before this one.
Yeah, it's Dave Pickerell. He said, I think it's Pickett. It is Pickerell, right?
Pickerell, Dave Pickerell, and then the current one is Rob Dietrich.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything else to add to this, or you want to like kind of round it out here?
You can round it out.
Yeah. So closing remarks. Anyone out there wants to throw out some more comments? I appreciate Bobby Crow and Jonathan Herring and several other people are out there doing that. And Kristen, obviously. Bobby Crow says, how is it compared? I don't know. We had a sip of another bottle. Don't know what batch it is. So not sure where it's at from the beginning. I never had one of the initial batches. Nate has pretty much a more recent one, and then also this one. But if you click back to the beginning of the podcast or part one, if you listen to the audio, we did talk about this bottle a lot and the cigar as well, which we were smoking the Blackened by Drew Estate for sure. You want to go first?
Sure.
Yeah. Closing remarks.
Is it worth the hype? I think you brought up a great point of comparing hype versus worth. Is it,
hype versus worth or value?
Worth.
Okay.
Like, when we look at whether it be whiskey, cigars, wine, career, is it worth actually spending the money? Is it worth spending the time?
Worth spending your money.
Yeah, it's easy to spend other people's money.
Jonathan Herring wedding.
Yeah, but I think we've talked about it before with some of the celebrity endorsed products or some of the stories behind certain products. Like last week when we had the Uncle Nearest.
Sure.
They're a newer brand. They're the fastest growing whiskey company since they started in 2017. Whenever you have something that has a great story behind it or a great name behind the product, you're going to get the people who buy it the first time. Is it worth the hype comes down to whether or not people buy it again. Or do people do that thing again? Like you talk about vacations, going to, a certain resort in another country. Is it worth it? I mean, what's the value?
You gotta figure it out yourself, man.
You do. And sometimes you'll try it the first time. If you don't think it was worth it, it could still been good. But if it wasn't great, you may not do it again.
Yeah.
And same thing with careers. Like you may want to pursue a career in a certain industry or just a specific job title. But if you don't have the immediate success in that, I think that's going to skew your view as to whether or not it was worth the hype.
Yeah. What's your scope, right?
I mean, you can't sit there and compare your experience in 6 months at a job to someone who's been doing it for 10 years. You can't compare because it's not apples to apples.
Have you ever had someone like you gave this raving review about a cigar, a whiskey, a wine, a spirit, vacation, cigar shop? I'm trying to think of like what you would give raving reviews on, Nate. And they came back and you're like, so what'd you think? It was okay.
Yeah, I've had that.
Like that's the other side of that equation. You hyped it up.
Yeah. And
what's your reaction to that?
So I'll usually ask them like, okay, why didn't you like it?
Mm-hmm.
What didn't you like about this? Because if they bought something from me, chances are they asked me what my opinion was of a product.
Sure.
And I gave my opinion based on my experience. If they didn't have the same experience, now I have more information to go off of to make the next recommendation. So if they come in and they're looking for a wine and I recommend a wine that I've had that I've enjoyed, but then they didn't enjoy, if they if they come back, which hopefully I do, and that's why I tell them, like, hey, and my boss makes the joke, and I've kind of picked it up from him. My boss will make the joke, hey, if you don't like that bottle, bring it back and I'll drink it. So it's more like, okay.
Has anyone brought back a half drank bottle?
No.
Oh.
But they may come back and go, yeah, I had that. I didn't really care for it. Okay. Tell me why.
Yeah. Same thing with cigars,
when you
right?
Do, when you do that, when you ask that question, okay, you didn't like it. That's great information to have. Tell me why you didn't like it. Because now I have more information to go off of to make a better recommendation. Because at first, based on your questions, I made a recommendation based off what I like, based on my palate or the things that I've enjoyed. But that's based on me, not you. You tell me now what you like or why you didn't like that product or what you did like about it. Now I can actually focus in on something more curtailed to your preferences.
Right.
When you start to do that, and now that person starts having enjoyable experiences, that's when they're going to start really coming back, because now you've shown the effort and you've shown that you care and you're actually focusing on their likes and their wants and not just you trying to sell a product.
Got it.
I had a customer one time come into the tinderbox, and he told me straight up that he was a newer cigar smoker. He'd only been smoking for a couple months. And I made some recommendations on cigars that based on what he told me he liked. As I'm ringing him up, he points to a cigar in the Davidoff case. Or no, he asked what the most expensive cigar was. And I pointed to a cigar in the Davidoff case. And he said, is it worth it?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, for you, no.
Great salesman. Just kidding. Go ahead.
And I told him why. I was like, you've only been smoking for 2 months. You're not going to understand and appreciate why that cigar costs what it costs. The people that come in and ask for that cigar and buy that cigar without asking questions, they know why they're buying that product because they like it. That is what they're looking for. If that's not your palate, you're not there yet, that's not the right product for you.
Sure.
You know, if all you've been drinking is like Old Crow.
Cool. I had that recently.
I know you did. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
If the only bourbon or whiskey you've been drinking is Old Crow, am I going to try and sell you an OHLQ barrel pick that costs $100?
Sure.
No. Because if they're used to buying a $7 bottle of whiskey and I recommend a $100 bottle of whiskey, they're going to laugh at me.
Yeah.
Because they're going to look at it as I'm only trying to get a sale. And I don't make commission off anything, but they're going to look at it as, oh, he's just trying to take my money.
Okay.
But if I make a recommendation based on what they like, that's when that customer actually feels confident to come back, that we're actually caring about their interest, not our own.
Yeah.
Because
you're trying to make money, you're trying to just sell the expensive stuff.
But it's also, do you want the short-term win or the long-term win? The company I used to work for, we used to have a particular sales rep. He would get a customer. He would win a customer over the first time, and then when that customer went on a holdover, he would jack up his margin because it would take that customer a month or two. It would take a month before that customer realized now that their price was extremely higher, and then by the time they made a change, they were being invoiced for another month. But the amount of commission he was making off of those 2 months was more than he had made on the original contract. But guess what? He burnt the bridge with that customer that we may never be able to win that customer over again.
Okay.
He was looking for his own short-term benefits and not long-term benefits of
So for him, it was worth the hype. For the customer, it was not.
Correct.
Yeah.
But when you're an employee working for someone else, your employer may prefer the long-term customer, because that long-term customer is going to keep coming back and spending money.
If you were the employer, you would be doing it a different way.
Yeah.
You're not looking for the quick fix. You're not looking for the quick check.
Yeah, because, you know, like if you own your own cigar shop, you want people coming back to you time and time again buying $10 cigars. You don't want them to come in, buy a $100 cigar once and never come back.
Sure.
Because if that person comes back and they keep buying $10 cigars, even if you only see them once a month, they're going to spend more money in the course of a year than they would have that one visit.
Yeah.
That's the kind of customer that you want, is that long-term investment. You're making an investment in the people. And I think most people out there appreciate that more than, you know, you're just trying to take my money. Kind of what we're talking about with the hype. Do you want to try and sell something because of the name behind it or the popularity of it? Or are you trying to sell a product because it's actually worth that person spending their money?
Yeah.
One of the things I had learned from someone I had listened to was, when you're going to buy something, instead of looking at it as dollars, look at it as hours. How many hours do you have to work to be able to afford that product? So if you're someone who's making $10 an hour, $100 bottle of wine, $100 bottle of whiskey, $100 cigar, that's 10 hours worth of your work.
Sure.
Do you want to work 10 hours just to be able to afford that one thing? So that's where I like what you brought in, the value or worth over hype. Like, do you want to try and get the one buy, the one quick win, or do you want the long-term success? And I think people look at that, their career as well, like we talked about with sales and entrepreneurship. Like, do you want the success that comes long-term now, or do you actually want to put in the effort? I think some people, especially younger generations, are so short-sighted that they don't realize what it actually takes to be successful. You know, when we were growing up in our 20s, we wanted to have the house our parents had. We wanted to have the cars our parents had, the family our parents had.
Sure.
We wanted it while we were in our 20s, not necessarily realizing it took our parents 20, 30 years to get to that point.
Yeah.
So is it worth the hype? If it's what you want, yes, it is. But with that also comes work and investment over time.
Good points. You know, is it worth the hype? You got to figure out what your worth is to you, right? And I think from the business side, it used to be the age-old thing of, and it was revisited more recently in the movie Wolf of Wall Street. Sell me this pen. I went through some sales training. Beyond that, looks like a jewel, like a cell phone, right? You go in these days, you know, everyone's boasting. It's like, this is faster. Takes better pictures, you know, it's like better night pictures and all that stuff. And it's like, you come into me and you want to buy a cell phone, right? I look at it as like, Nate, if you came in, I'm looking at you and like, okay, you're looking to upgrade your cell phone. You know what I mean? Why? Like, what's wrong with your current cell phone? It's like, it's dropping calls, and you know what I mean? I can't really, you know, it's spotty when I'm talking to people. It's like, oh, okay. Like, do you take a lot of pictures with your cell phone? Some, not really. You know, I like to take pictures of the kids. Oh, like, is it important, like the quality of the pictures? Like, you want like the highest definition, or you want good pictures? Just like something you can have. How important to you is internet speed? Like, you want like just like,
how many cameras do you actually want?
At your fingertips, or do you just want like something solid? I just want something solid. I've been watching these advertisements out there, and it's like, like everyone's saying, like this new Samsung, this new iPhone, it's the best out there. It is. Do you need that? Like what's important to you in a cell phone? Well, I want to be able to make calls. I want to be able to text. I want to be able to send pictures, and I want a reliable network. Oh, is that it? Or do you want like the best? Do you want the best megapixels? Do you want the best? Do you post a lot? Do you like, you're on social media a lot? No, I'm not on there at all. Well, you probably don't need the newest iPhone. You can get the iPhone a couple generations back if you want to do that. It'll save you money. Oh, that's worth it. That's value. Going back to the shoe thing. It's like, do you want the name brand? Do you want people that, like, do people around, is it important to you that people recognize what shoe you have on, or do they just say, that's a nice pair of shoes and they're comfortable? I just want them to be comfortable.
Yeah.
I got a pair of shoes for you.
Yep. That's me.
Right. So that's the value, right? Is it worth the hype is all about value to me. We can talk about cigars and spirits all day long. I look at it as, I was going to bring up this comment here. I think it's all about who you trust and what you have in common with the sources. That's what we were saying earlier. Yeah. Do you do your research and understand the experience you are trying to have? Then you can make an educated decision, but also make sure in whatever you do, leave time, energy in that decision to dedicate for yourself to make sure you are in the moment so you don't get spoiled. That's kind of what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Is it worth the hype? The newest best thing, the nicest, the newest fridge, the newest dryer, the newest, like all these like things like that is important to some people. And I'm not going to take that away, but it's like, what's important to you? If you have a source, as Bobby said, Tim Dodge says Steve's phone is in Kristen's Louis Vuitton purse. No, it's not. I have no problem with nice things, right? I do enjoy those things as long as I can afford them. And I encourage everyone out there to do it, because to what you were saying earlier, Nate, that, you saw a little bit of the light, that you pay a little bit more for a reputable thing. You expect it to last longer. That's the value, right? Is it worth the hype? If you spent $20 on a pair of Walmart jeans and you spent $100 on a pair of jeans that you had and they last the same amount and they are the same comfort level, it's not worth the hype. You put on a pair of jeans that you're like, these are way more comfortable. And then a year goes by, I'm like, they held up. I don't have to get a new pair of jeans yet. That's worth the hype. If they fail in that's a problem. Mm-hmm. If I sell you a cell phone, same thing, and I'm like, no, this one, I'm not even asking you what you like. Yeah, I saw the new advertisement for the new Samsung, the new iPhone. Like, they say it's the best. It is. This thing, low light camera, is amazing. So when you're out at night and you want to take these pictures, dude, they're going to be so much better than your old pictures. And I tell you what, it's so fast. I mean, when you're posting social media, it's like that. You're doing editing on photos. It's so fast. You don't waste any time. But I never asked you, do you post anything on social media? Do you need fast internet? Do you need low light camera? I don't fucking care about you. And the people, that goes back to the source. All these things you're reading, like, that sounds like the best phone. I can sell you on it probably, but better, to your point, longevity is I sell you the phone that you want, that makes you happy. Are you out in a night like tonight taking pictures? Not once. Then why do you care about that? Why do you want to pay an extra $200 for a low light camera that is, you see these commercials and it's like, oh my God, like, it's like you're out with your friends and it's like your old camera, at night at a bar was like so like shaky and the pictures were shit. And it's like, I haven't been out to a bar at night in dark light in 20 years. Why would I want that? I just want my phone to work when I call someone.
I just want to take pictures of the grandkids.
Like, yeah. That is it worth the hype? That's where I said going way back. A lot of times it's not, unless it's what's important to you. And I think that's the big part of it, is that sometimes you do have to do it yourself, but you also have to know what you want out of it.
Yeah.
Whether it be a phone, whether it be a whiskey, a cigar, whether it be joking, purses, everything else. Like, what's important to you? Because if something is important to you, that you feel that you bought a quality product and you worked your ass off for it, like you were saying, you want the nicer things that your parents had, they worked their ass off for it. But one of the reasons that is so appreciative to them is that they worked their ass off so that now they can afford it. If all you want is that newest thing, or the hottest bourbon, or the most expensive cigar, or like, I want to impress people with the bottle of wine I have. Okay, but if that's what's important to you, here it is. This is what you need to buy. This is worth the hype. You will impress people. That party the guy had that you were talking about earlier was like, yeah, no, you should buy these things if you're gonna, like, if they want to be impressed. If they know cigars, buy these cigars because they'll be impressed.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I had a customer the other day who was looking at buying a couple bottles of wine for a friend who was turning 60,
mm-hmm.
and they gave me their price point, and they were looking at a couple bottles. I made recommendations, and then I threw out there, I was like, or, to get a case discount, I can sell you 6 bottles of wine that are, less expensive than the individual bottles you're looking at. Like, all right, well, pick me out 6 bottles. I picked out 6, and it came out to more than what they were originally going to spend. But they looked at it and goes, oh, I'm only spending this number of dollars more, but I'm getting so much more wine for it. And then they also sat there and said, you know what? That one bottle you told me about that was $40, you had me sold on that. Replace it with one of these.
Yes. People buy for different reasons. And a lot of times people buy from people they like. So whatever side of the equation you're on, make sure you find that person that you trust, no matter what the industry is. And if you're on the other side of it, make sure that you are selling because that's what they want. Not what's going to give you a better commission, not because it's more expensive. It's never about that, but also don't profile on the other side of it and sell them lower than they think.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a big part of it too. So I think no matter what side of it is it worth the hype? It's what is it worth to you? What's important to you? That's what you have to figure out, is that if you are on that side, is that what's important to me is that the bottle tastes good to me. You asked, like you were talking about that earlier, is like, it's asking those questions about the cell phone. What's important to you? When you walk into a store, whatever it might be, buying a car, doing all that stuff, what's important? Because if that salesperson, if you're looking at houses and the realtor is like, oh, this is a great neighborhood, this is like this, like they never ask you what your wish list was, get a different realtor, right? I want a 3-car garage. So this is great. So it's great neighborhood and all this stuff, and it's
great
like
school district.
And then all of a sudden,
we don't have
school
kids.
district. We don't have kids, but it's 1-car garage. Well, it's got a 1-car. I told you I want a 3-car garage. Yeah, but the school district is amazing. It's like you're just trying to make a sale. It's not worth the hype.
Yeah.
What's worth the hype is what you figure out. Is it important to you, and are you going to enjoy it? And that's about knowing yourself. And I think that's where we all come back to. That is that on both sides of the equation is it worth the hype? Well, can you afford it? One, yes or no. That's a big factor. And the follow-up there is, I always say this example, go back to wine. I say this in the shop. This is well before I knew Kristen and you were working at Carfagna's. If you offered me $1,000, dude, I got this bottle of $1,000 Pinot Grigio. I want you to have a glass. I'm going to crack it tonight. I'm going to pop the. No. I don't like Pinot Grigio. No, this is different. This is something special. And all of a sudden, I have a glass in my hand of this Pinot Grigio. I take a sip of it, and I like it. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. What do you think of it? It's pretty good. That's not the response they want.
No.
I'm going to say, like,
they want you to like it as much as they do.
This is the best Pinot Grigio I've ever had. I still don't like it. I don't like Pinot Grigio. If you gave me a Pinot Noir and it's $1,000, I'm like, this is really good. And in my mind, I'm like, I wouldn't have paid $1,000 for it because I got like 6 other options that I like just as much. But is it worth the hype? It's up to you, man. That's where I go back to this. Is I know the topic. We didn't really like solidify this, but it goes back to you, and it's about giving yourself a chance of, do you enjoy it or not, and did you do the research, and are you within your means of trying whatever it might be. Never go for the hype. I go back to the whole thing of like, even like my cousin sent a picture. I think you saw it. My cousin Lindsay, of us as kids. And I looked down, I sent her a message like, oh, those are the Jordans I needed to have back when I was a fucking, like, whatever age it was. It was like Jordan, whatever they call it, 4s or 5s now. Love that. If you spend money on like a pair of shoes just for the value, like for the price and for the name brand, and you put them on your feet and they don't fit right and your feet hurt, is it worth the hype? Nope. Because you are miserable. And that's where I look at all this, is like, you really need to know yourself and what is worth it to you.
It may be worth the hype once, but is it worth the second one?
No, it's not. All right, guys. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Bobby, thanks for tuning in later. I'm sorry I'm not looking at this. The last comment, we'll comment later. But cheers, everyone. We will have, who do we have on next week? Blanco Cigars.
David Blanco
Cigars. David Blanco's
just featured one of theirs recently.
Yep, absolutely. So I think we're going to be smoking the final third.
Oh,
yeah.
So I love
tune in next week.
Love that cigar.
We'll be having him on, and we're talking about his projects that he's going to be in the Smoking 10 event on Saturday, March 18th. So we hope to have all you guys there if you're able to be there. We have 50, 60 tickets left, and looking forward to that party. But we'll see you guys next week. Cheers. Enjoy your week. And if you're in the Midwest, enjoy tomorrow. It's going to be warm, and it's winter again.